We're going to go ahead and call the Morgan County Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for October 24th, 2022 to order. We do have a quorum this evening with all members in attendance. Mr. Rumbaugh, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Rumbaugh. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting, but as I understand, we don't have copies of the minutes yet for that meeting, so we'll waive that item this evening. We do have an agenda that was sent to us. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening? If not, I'll open for a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as sent.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Say aye. 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 The agenda is approved. We ask our board's attorney, Mr. Peden, to swear in anyone who's going to speak this evening. Mr. Peden, if you would please do so.
This is a quasi-judicial meeting. A few comments from the board will be considered as testimony by a witness. Each of you may go address the board. You should swear to God, oath, and then the rest of you.
Thank you, Mr. Peden. All right, our first item on the agenda this evening is under new business, and it's public hearing SE-22-07A. Brian Munch, on behalf of VCNA Prairie Aggregate Holdings Illinois, Inc., is seeking to amend the previously approved 2019-2021 special exceptions to reduce the setback requirement for the nearest residential use. The property is located at 7890-8366 East State Road 144 and 10203 North Man Road, Madison Township, and is zoned I2 and Ag. For this application, I have several people signed up in support of, and it looks like one person is an interested party. Mr. Munch. If you could start out by giving us, and this goes for everyone, when you come up to the podium, if you could start out by giving us your name and address, we appreciate that.
Yes, good evening, board. My name is Brian Munch with Munch Engineering Offices at 4000 Clark Creek Road, Plainfield, Indiana, 46168. With me in attendance tonight is several members from the BZA Prairie Aggregate Division. I'll introduce them very quickly. Tim Kinney, who's the general manager of Prairie Aggregate. David Hanratty, their principal geologist. Neil Adaloff, their environmental corporate. Brad Powell, their general manager for the Indiana region. And Jonathan Owens, who's the manager of the Prairie location at Waverly. At this time, I'd like to have Tim come up to the podium, and he'll go through the presentation for this evening's presenting of this case.
Thank you.
If I may approach the board, I have handouts of the actual presentation itself.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. First of all, we appreciate you guys hearing our case again in the time this evening. Is this how you switch a page?
No, that's the laser pointer.
Okay. You're going to switch over there, Brian? Okay, okay. Again, my name is Timothy Kenny. I'm the general manager of Prairie Material Aggregate Division over the Illinois and Indiana area. And we have our good team with us here tonight. First of all, we've operated in Morgan County since 2001, employing approximately 8 people. We're a good support of the community with our employees and supporting local vendors. Prairie's contributed over $200,000, in real estate taxes since 2012 alone. Safety is our #1 priority, and that goes from the top down for VCNA Prairie. It permeates in everything we do as a company. We treat a lot of our employees as family members, so we definitely take safety very serious. We are a clean industry. We don't use any chemicals, any harmful ingredients in any of our plant operations. Environmental stewardship is one of our guiding principles. We have all the MPDS permits, just air permits, annual inspections, monthly inspections, and train all of our employees. We like to be a friend of the environment, so we're be a good neighbor. And our progressive reclamation starts at the time of mining. We put our dirt back in our holes. We don't have any unsightly berms, mounds of dirt, or anything. Okay, Brian. Some recent history. Prairie was last seen in front of the board on November 25th, 2019 for the north parcel. And that's the right-hand sheet, the right-hand map on the overhead, and then on January 25th, 2001 for the west parcel. And since that time, both in requests, we were granted a 1,000-foot setback from the neighbors. And since that time, with the adoption of the UDO down to 50 feet, that's why we're here tonight. Okay, Brian. Is there any questions, I'm sorry, before I get too far ahead on anything? Okay, so the reason we're here tonight is we are requesting from the board a 150-foot setback based on that new ordinance, and that is 3 times the 50-foot requirement. We will keep, let's see how this works, okay. So right now, our plant entrance is right here, and that will not change at all. We'll keep our scale house, our plant right there. So the only thing we're asking for is the property up here to the, where our 1,000-foot setback was. We're able to mine this property around each edge. So the only thing that would affect is just our dredge operation and our removal of overburden. So the plant, the entrance, hours of operation, and just our current production will all remain the same. So it's just expanding our footprint within property that Prairie Material already owns. There is an entrance over here on Man Road, and that will not be used for commercial truck traffic. That would just be for maintenance activities, safety, and then use by the owners. So everything would remain down here off State Road 144. And we have constructed berms here along the east edge and angled up and to the north, but we would have all berms in place before we would expand our footprint if we are approved to go within 150 feet. And we have started planting trees down here along State Route 144, so we would put vegetation up on all the berms. That would help dissipate the noise if we're allowed to expand closer to the berms. And everything down here, the berms at the entrance, all that would remain the same. Okay, Brian. Is there any questions on that, sir, gentlemen? So to be proactive, we did hand out 54 questionnaires to the surrounding neighbors. We did receive 8 responses, and they are summarized right below there. The main ones, first one was debris on the public roads. Second, dust control. Third, any noise impact from our operations. And the third is any impact on private wells. And we did actually receive some positive feedback on our berm construction, which we're happy about. And we do keep them mowed well, and as we said, we are working on vegetating our berms. Okay, Brian? So the first one was debris on the roadways. We are now doing daily inspections of the roads and the public right-of-ways, both sweeping and keeping the right-of-ways cleared off. And we are putting on-site, the main problem with debris on the roadways is tailgates not being closed with our cartage drivers, so we do have signage on the property reminding drivers to close their tailgates. The secondly was the fugitive dust control plan. We do have a very good fugitive dust control plan with our environmental department, and that includes routine inspections of any materials that could create dust, any routine removal of fugitive dust creating material, which is cleaning roadways and that sort of thing. We do have a water truck on site for keeping all roadways, control the dust on those. And we do have wheel washes exiting the property to control the dust as well. going onto the scale and exiting the property. So we feel we do control our dust very well. Okay, Brian? Okay. And thirdly was a noise study. So we were proactive, and in June, we had a third party conduct a noise study. What they did is they did it inside the berm. We had a few outside the berm, but most of the decibel readings were inside the berm. And EPA does recommend a daylight decibel average of 55. Housing and Urban Development, Federal Aviation, and Department of Defense recommended 65 decibels as a safe level. And what we concluded is at 50 feet from the dredge, the result was 64 decibels, and the further you got away from the dredge, that dissipated the sound significantly. And with the construction of the berm and vegetation on the berm, no one would even know that we're operating in the site. So we would stay well within under the 55 decibels with our dredge operation. And I think that includes, yeah, so that should be it on that page, Brian. And lastly was the concern of wells. We do have a company-wide well guarantee agreement, which we're willing to provide every neighbor with 660 feet. And this is pretty much our process that we would follow. If you have any questions on that, but the neighbor would contact with any concerns, and we will meet with the neighbors. If there is any issues while we're investigating, we will provide temporary water, and we will contact the contractor on behalf of the landowner that does have an issue. And depending on what that investigation concludes, if there is a pump failure, obviously the landowner can utilize that contract to repair it. If there's any issues with the well capacity, the contractor or consultant would recommend how to handle that with the well. And if there is an issue caused by our excavation, Prairie Material will take care of that neighbor's well. So we're willing to offer this well guarantee to every neighbor that did receive this notice within 660 feet of our operation.
How did you come up with 660, is it?
Yeah, that was, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was who received this notice based on the zoning case.
No, how did you come up with that 660 feet being the number, the measurement that you would utilize to notify?
That was anyone that would be a concerned neighbor that did receive notice of this hearing.
Now, how did you determine to use 660 feet versus 842 feet?
Well, in all honesty, the reason we're willing to provide this to anybody, because with it is a wet gravel pit, so we're not concerned with affecting anyone's wells. Is there any, Brian, do you have any comment on that as far as the 660 feet?
I think what the goal is to be consistent. Typically, public notification for these type of hearings is either 2 properties deep or 660 feet total. So by being consistent with the board requirements or the ordinance requirements of 660 being impact our surrounding neighbors, that's where the number came from. So it's somewhat arbitrary on our behalf, but it's trying to follow suit with what the community would feel as surrounding properties in our notification requirements.
So was Bargersville's water company notified on this?
Yes, anybody within that surrounding property, so they would have been notified.
So how would you provide temporary water to them if there was an issue with the well? Because aren't they pumping a massive amount of water out of the ground there?
Yes, I'm sure they are. We're not concerned with any well issues. Of all the years we've been in business, we've never had a well issue, even in dry mining operations. And with this being a wet operation, we don't foresee any issues. But as far as providing, we'd have to work on that on a case-by-case basis.
I'm sorry?
Well, it just depends on if the quantity of water is more, we would have to handle it on a case-by-case basis.
John, I may add that this is obviously geared toward residential type wells. The Bargersville Water Utility, being a public water supply, is governed by the set of rules by IDEM, and they also would weigh in on these type of conversations. And obviously, we've been through these cases in the past where we are conscious of their 5-year time of travel, 10-year time of travel, those type of items that has to protect their well source. to date, there's been no issues with IDEM or anybody of that public water utility. So I understand your question on quantities. Obviously, this is geared toward residential. When you get into commercial wells, there's a whole different beast of requirements that we have to be conscious of.
All right, thank you.
How many houses would be impacted? Now, I'm assuming this is from the edge of your property is 660 feet away, not from the
Correct.
dredging operation, but from the edge of your property?
Yes.
How many houses are involved right now?
Well, that 54 would have also included landowners, so as far as an exact number, I'm not sure of that. Because the notice would have went out to anybody that owns property. So as far as the houses, there wouldn't be quite 54, but we'd have to get an exact number what that would be. I'm sure it would be the majority of that 54 number,
Thank you.
yes. But again, we're not concerned about affecting some of these wells, because we've been doing this a lot of years. Like I said, even in dry mining operations where you could possibly have a water drainage, we've never had an issue. And again, this is a wet operation, so we would maintain the water table at the same level.
Is there any nighttime or weekend work?
We are restricted on hours. 7 to 3, correct? I'm sorry? 7 to 3 during the week, and then just half day on Saturday. Half day, and so them hours would not change. We would be on the same hours of operation. All we're asking for is expand our footprint to utilize all of our reserve that Prairie Material owns. So we wouldn't be changing our operations in any way.
There was a figure of 65 acres that we're probably talking about. How many years will this expand your operation?
It would have been 22 acres, I believe, right, Brian, we figured? 22 additional acres? Yes, yeah, not 65, 22 acres, sir.
How long will this expand your operation?
How many years? It would be approximately 8 to 10 years.
So you're real close right now, as I remember, and I may be mistaken, to 30 years longevity?
Is that correct, David? Yeah, pretty close, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
You're welcome.
You say there's 54 houses that, or pieces of property that's affected there that,
Well, there was more letters than that, but we had a lot of duplicates on the letters, so we narrowed it down to where we had 54 different landowners that owned property. So that included any surrounding acreage. So there might not necessarily been a house on some of those properties, but the majority of them would have been residences, yes.
what kind of response are you saying you're getting?
We only had 8 responses. Brian, could you go back to that page, please? One more. Okay, so of the 8 responses, the common ones were debris on public roadways, which we're going to take action of daily inspections. And as I mentioned, our tailgates tend to be left open. That's our biggest problem. So we're going to have signage and remind the drivers to close your tailgate, and daily, if necessary, daily cleaning of the roadway as necessary. The third one was dust on public roadways, which we'll maintain with our water truck and our spray bars leaving the property. And then the third one was the potential noise impact, which we feel we took care of with our noise study, that we're not going to impact the neighbors any with noise. And the last being the impact on private wells, which we're willing to guarantee with our well guarantee agreement. So we feel like we've addressed all the neighbor concerns. And again, the noise study we did in June, so we knew that was an issue, and we wanted to be proactive on the noise study, so we conducted that before we sent in our application.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
I believe there's, Brian, can you go to the final page? There we are. Yeah, so again, this expansion it's in term with our long-term plan, and will be within our existing footprint. So we're not expanding our property beyond, and again, we're committed to the safety of our employees and our neighborhoods. Environmentally, we make sure we're a good neighbor, be environmentally with all of our, keep our permits active, inspections active, to be as good a neighbor as possible. And we just want to be a good neighbor in the community. We feel like we support the community well with our operation, and we like to continue that and be in this area as long as possible.
Thank you.
I got a question.
Yes.
Sorry?
On page 4, where are you going to start at, basically?
Page 4, Brian. Okay, so right now, our dredge is operating right in this area, at the 1,000-foot setback. So we would come here to the east along Smoky Row Road, and then they'd work the dredge north, and then we'd eventually start working our way back towards the west. So right now, that is kind of our as far as we can expand right now for the 1,000-foot setback.
Just north of where you're operating now, then?
Correct, yes, and then a little bit to the east, and then swing around to the northwest and work this north property. Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
And again, that would only be the dredge expanding. It wouldn't be anything with the operation. We just have to add pipe to the dredge. So it would just be strictly the dredge moving and removal of overburden.
How do you keep people out of there after dark and on weekends? Are you trespassers?
Well, we have started adding a fence, which, for security reasons, we could put a fence all the way around the property. But that's a pretty good sized berm around the property, so that does, and we do have a fence currently along Smoky Row Road. And to my knowledge, we've never had any issues with any trespassers or anything, so.
Somebody wants to go fishing or take a dip.
Yeah, well, we'll hope for the best, yeah. And, of course, Brad Powell, he'll probably get mad at me saying this, but he's been in the mining business as long as I've been alive. And he opened this pit up, so he's got a world of experience with this operation. And with Jonathan being there for 20 years, we have a good local team right on site. And very little, if any, complaints, correct, from any neighbors over the years, so.
I don't have anything else.
Gentlemen, any other questions?
Not right now.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate your time again.
Brad Powell, you're next on the list. Did you want to speak, or you want to? I'll butcher this. Nilden? Adeloff? Did I kill that?
It's Nilden,
Okay,
very close.
all right. David Hanratty?
I just wanted to add to Tim's comment about the
Can you give us
dredge
your
and the well
name and your
guarantee.
address, please?
Oh, sorry, my apologies. David Hanratty, 55 Industrial Street. And I am the Director of Land and Resource and Environment for the company. The well guarantee that was provided, the reason why we're confident is because this operation recycles the water. So it doesn't dewater the property. And I just wanted to make that clear. It's not that the water level is being lowered. The water level is can remain consistent because the water comes through the dredge with the sand and gravel material, goes to the plant, and then recycles back into the pond. So there's no lowering of the water level, which is the reason why we're very confident in our well guarantee as a company. So I just wanted to clarify that in case that wasn't clear for everyone. Are there any questions relating to that?
Gentlemen, any questions?
No.
So
Thank-
you're extracting the water and the material. You're putting the water back in, and what exposure is there to contaminating that water through that process?
There is no contamination through that process because it's a closed loop system. And the water itself is not, there's no contaminants being added to it. It's a clean industry, right? So it's just water and the sand and gravel material going in through the dredge and back out through the process. So there's no contaminant that has the potential to be introduced.
How does the dredge operate? What powers the dredge?
It'll have a fuel source, but it's completely closed off from the system itself. So the fuel is handled in a way that is appropriate for making sure it's contained. It's not part of the system that would be able to be introduced into the lake.
So what is that fuel system that powers the dredge?
It's a diesel system, right? It's a diesel fuel system.
As we hear about, and I know my pond fluctuates with the evaporation rate and things like that, what do you anticipate with the way the the state is drying, I guess I should say that way? What, is this going to impact your level? Is the river going to impact your level as it drops?
No, so part of the thing that people forget about is that in a state where there is more precipitation than evaporation, lakes actually provide an opportunity for recharge, right? Because it's open water to the aquifer system, and that has the ability for any rain, snow, anything like that to melt and recharge the system more directly than if the material was left there on top and it had to infiltrate down through the ground. Because some of that infiltration actually gets captured in the material itself, but if you have a lake, it's direct recharge into the system. So while there's a bit more evaporation versus if there was vegetation and you know, crops being grown and things like that, there's a lot of evapotranspiration that happens in that situation. So when you have a lake opened up, direct precipitation on top of the lake actually recharges more.
What does that lake vary in height over the year?
I believe it's somewhere around a 5-foot elevation change between seasons.
Thank you.
So when the dredge is mining that, and then that material is sent from the dredge to, I guess, whatever your equipment's called.
The plant?
Shakes it and does all that kind of stuff. How is it transported from the dredge itself to the plant?
So it's through the pipe that Tim was talking about. So
Okay.
the dredge is the thing that moves, and pipes are tacked onto it to extend it out further, but it goes through the pipe into the plant directly.
Okay, all right. Gentlemen, other questions?
You got any, Frank? No. No. Not for him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and is everybody signed up in support of? I have David Yount signed up as an interested person. Mr. Yount?
Yes, my name's David Yount with Deputy Fred Beck and Yount offices at 9 East Court Street in Franklin, Indiana. We're the attorneys for the town of Bargersville. Just interested in the fact that the town's water plant is the other side of Smoky Row Road. If my understanding is correct, their operation's moving north. It is further away from the plant. Not necessarily concerned with that, but just point of clarification, the town has not been offered any sort of well guarantee or had any discussions with Prairie whatsoever. I know that was a question that was asked. Nothing, no word has been received from Prairie to the town. I know that was a question asked earlier, so just wanted that point of clarification.
So if I hadn't asked that question, what else are you concerned about with this, if
Just
anything?
concerned with the time of travel, as Brian talked about, as that open lake, the water will, my understanding as a lawyer, talking to the engineers for the town, is the water does have the potential to penetrate into the ground sources and then move towards the river closer to those wells, which then, if it's contaminated, contaminates the drinking water for tens of thousands of customers. It's a unfortunate, and again, my understanding is, where there is water, there is also sand and gravel. So just trying to figure out, how do these two entities coexist? We would like to see restrictions on, potential future use in terms of things that prohibit and keep things that might have a heavy influence in use of chemicals in the future when they're gone. I know there haven't been any issues now. Our concerns tend to be when it ceases, but more or less right now, I've just been asked to come here and just being confirmed what we send is what is happening. So that is our overall concern, is when these operations are gone and the pond just sits there and they're no longer there, what does the future look like when they're not there to maintain that pond and that water seeps through and gets closer to those wells. That's our concern.
All right. Questions, gentlemen?
Yeah, you reemphasize this again. Did you say in Bargersville did not get any notification?
We got notification of the expansion, but the comment about the offer being made for well guarantees, none of that was extended to the town. And I know there's a difference between a private well and a public water utility, but no guarantees or no offers were extended to the town. I just wanted that clarification. So it will, we would love to entertain such an offer, I'm sure, but nothing was made, so.
Can you speak to this? How many wells
There
have you got
are
active
three or
back there right now?
3 or 4, I believe, right now, with, again, the potential to expand. As 69 goes through and the growth happens on both sides of the county line there, both with Johnson and Morgan County, the potential is great for expansion there in terms of well to supply drinking water to residents and water for, commercial development in the future along there for both communities. We have the potential to serve. We do have, I couldn't tell you the exact number of customers that are currently served in Morgan County, but there are some that are served by Bargersville Water. Yeah.
Okay.
And the water company went in and put the wells in after the gravel company was already in existence, correct, in that location?
I believe we actually purchased the property before the time. I don't recall. I was not practicing law at that time, but I believe it's pretty close in time. We did not put the plant in until after the gravel operation was in existence, but I believe we may have purchased the property first or about the same time.
All right.
But again, where there is water, there is also usually sand and gravel.
Right. Any other questions, gentlemen? No?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have no one else signed up on behalf of this application. Is there anybody else in the room that's interested in this that didn't sign up?
I got one more question for Mr. Brancher. Brian, for you, you can answer it. You came in front of this board here a couple of years ago about getting approval on the east side of Smoky Row Road.
That's correct.
It's right adjacent with the Bargersville water system.
That is correct.
So far, you started some operations on it, but you backed off.
That's correct.
Please tell us what you're going to do, your anticipations are for that property.
Obviously, that property has been zoned for gravel extraction. With the petition you see in front of you tonight, that is not in the long-term plans to extract gravel from. We feel that the growth that we have on the west side of Smoky Road, over to Man along State Road 144, fulfills our business needs and our business opportunities. So long-term plans do not incorporate the extension over to the east side of Smoky Road roads.
Are you rescinding that approval that you was giving for that property to activate?
I'm not in a position to rescind that. It's above my pay grade, actually. But no, I don't think we're rescinding that. I think our focus is in our operations. There are some technical ability or technical challenges to extend to the east side of Smoky Row Road. Obviously, moving material from the east side to the west side of Smoky Road is a challenge. And we do not have a desire to move the plant. Obviously, the plant is where it's located at. So moving material from those remote locations back to the plant is more challenging on the east side of Smoky Road. The other issues is the proximity to White River. There is some fluvial erosion now is a new requirement that we have to address through the Drainage Board and the state agencies. So that property is not as lucrative as it once was, as we presented, I believe it was 2016 when we made that presentation to the board on at that time. But I cannot rescind that approval. I'm not the owner of that property. I can't go forward with that.
A question for you, Brian, and I don't know if you
My
can
concern
answer it or
is-
one of your cohorts. Go ahead. I didn't mean to walk on you,
My
Fred.
concern being in there with this, making this exception here to change the footage of activation. And then this property here still being adjacent with the water supply, main water supply for thousands of people.
Tim, do you want to address that, or David?
I'm concerned with contamination more.
Yeah, let me,
We're just
let me,
expanding on the contamination.
I understand it, and I know when we presented this in 2016, that was a very well-discussed concern. And I think we were able to show that we were not impacting at that point in time. And I think Mr. Yount even explained that there are no concerns. I think the more concern that they have now is what happens when we go away. And I think we can speak to that as well, to a certain degree. Yeah, so let me have David come up, and he can maybe speak to that in a little bit more detail.
Hi again. So back when we had that discussion in 2016, and they had that concern, my background is in hydrogeology. That's what I'm trained in, so groundwater. And what I explained at the time was the concern about time of travel, the filtration laterally through that sand and gravel resource, through that time of travel to those wells, is something that doesn't change. So there's still that filtration effect that Bargersville is after. That doesn't change. The concern that was expressed of who came first, we actually sold that piece of land to them. So we were definitely established as an industry when those wells were built. So the concern about this reduction in the 1,000 feet from the Bargersville wells, to me as a hydrogeologist, is not a concern at all because the filtration doesn't change. The act of pulling that water from an established lake at the end of the day is no different than if that percolated down, got into the groundwater, and moved over to the wells that way. So in my technical opinion, that does not change whatsoever, and the protection is offered there. We are also wanting to just clarify that the well guarantee that was brought before you tonight was something to address the concerns that were raised by the questionnaire that was sent out, and it was sent out to Bargersville. So it wasn't that the well guarantee was sent out to everybody else but Bargersville. It was the questionnaire that was sent out to everybody to see what their concerns were. And when we heard that well guarantees were a concern for some of the neighbors, that's where we offered up the guarantee for their wells. So from Bargersville perspective, we can have certainly a discussion with them on any remaining concerns, but this, from a technical standpoint, is nothing to be concerned about. It's not going to affect their wells.
Lateral comment, if anybody would contaminate that lake, how far laterally does that would be an exposure to people?
Any kind of filtration that is going to happen in that 5-year time of travel is not going to be increased or decreased whether that lake is there or not there. That filtration is going to happen within tens of meters, it's not hundreds of meters. And that's the thing that we tried to explain last time. That time of travel that they're concerned about is not something that we're going to be affecting by creating a lake. It's the lateral movement through that porous media is what it's called, the sand and gravel. That's where contaminants get trapped and things like that into the matrix of the sand and gravel. I'm getting a bit technical, but that's the filtration capacity that material holds, and that's not going to change based on the reduction of setbacks that we're talking about.
Thank you.
When that river floods, though, that water gets pretty close to Smoky Road, doesn't it?
Yes, it
I've
does.
seen it up there right around that barn many a time.
And that's exactly my point. They have wells that are located much closer to a river that floods and gets close to their wells than what our lake is really going to be in relation to their wells.
One of the last times you were here, I think the wells were under about 6 or 8 feet of water. So-
Correct.
So I remember the
The
conversation.
monitoring wells and their own wells, yeah.
Other questions, gentlemen? No? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to throw this out there, Brian. I don't know if you're the person to answer this or someone else in your organization that's with you here this evening, but take a look at this for a second. Let me show you this. I don't know if you provided this or if this is something our office put together, this description of the request. Was that your doing? So it says on this that acceptance of self-imposed setbacks will allow for nearly 65 acres of additional gravel extraction, but then I heard somebody saying 22. I'm just trying to clarify what
I
we're
asked
dealing
that
with
question.
here.
So I think there's a little bit of confusion there. Obviously, as you're aware, we do have Sinking Creek that divides our property. I think the 22 acres is the immediate expansion to the north and to the northwest. The 65 includes the area to the west, the additional land to the west of Sinking Creek.
The McCarty Farms property?
Correct. So the 22 acres would be this piece of expansion. When you take the 22 and then you take the additional increase in or the decrease in setback along this area, it totals up to 65, with obviously Sinking Creek being a monument that we have to work around, or a land feature that we need to address in the future. So immediately allows a 22-acre area, additional 22-acre area to open up that could be mined sooner, rather than the additional, what's that, 40-some acres that's on the McCarty piece. So I apologize for that confusion, but let me clarify that.
So you're only asking for 22 acres?
No, we're asking for all 65.
Okay.
What I'm explaining is the immediate 22 would be here on the east side of Sinking Creek. The additional acreage would be opened up as we move to the west on the other side of Sinking Creek. That's not an immediate item because we do have Sinking Creek that we need to address. So the total increase in acreage is 65 acres.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, gentlemen?
Subject to DNR approval.
Yes, subject to, federal and state approvals.
That answers my question. I read 65 and then you said 22.
I'm sorry for that. I want to clarify that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, at this point, we've heard from everyone who signed up to speak this evening, so we'll go from our public hearing to a public meeting. We are considering an application to amend a previously approved special exception in 2021 on this. And in order for the board to grant this, we have to agree that the applicant meets several findings of facts. And I'll read those, what they are, and read the applicant's response to those as well. Number one, the proposed special exception use. It says describe the proposed use of the property. And the applicant has written mineral extraction expansion to the purpose of increasing the dredge/wet operations while maintaining existing separation of plant entrance and location. Under number 2.1, the statement is the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the special exception will not be detrimental to or endanger public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. The applicant indicates that's a true statement and writes, BCNA Prairie is an established business at this location for over 20 years. that has expanded with no issues as their business grows. The granting of this petition will allow this existing business to continue to grow and operate. 2.2, the statement is a special exception will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted. The applicant indicates that's a true statement as well, and notes the perimeter of the property is screened with earthen mounds and vegetation, providing a pleasing screen from the operations of the facility. These mounds and vegetation provide a barrier for noise and view from the operation so the adjoining properties can be enjoyed as currently. Under 2.3, the statement is the establishment of the special exception will not impede or substantially alter the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. The applicant has indicated that's a true statement and writes the property under consideration is bounded by public right-of-way on 3 sides, with the north side being agriculture. The intermediate area has other mineral extraction operations as well, which are consistent land use types. Under 2.4, the statement is adequate utilities, access, road drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided, and the applicant indicates that's a true statement and states that the property has existing utility services of adequate capacity, and the granting of the petition will not require these to be expanded. Under 2.5, the statement is adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress and egress, so designed to minimize traffic congestion on the public roadways. The applicant indicates that's a true statement and has written the main entrance into the property from a governed state road will not be altered and is deemed to be sufficient by NDOT. And number 2.6, the statement is the special exception will be located in a district where such use is permitted, and all other requirements set forth in this UDO that are applicable to such use will be met. The applicant indicates that's a true statement and makes a statement that the adoption of the recent Unified Development Code allows for this type of request. For the technical reports from the county surveyor, they make a big comment that erosion control and drainage must be submitted prior to earth moving. I don't see anything from the health department on this request. For the staff recommendation, they have written, finding 2.1 asks if amending the special exception to reduce the 1,000-foot setback would be detrimental to the public's health, safety, or general welfare. The petitioner hired a consultant to perform a noise study. In the consultant's expert opinion, reducing the setback as proposed will not increase the level of noise leaving the property, but noted the berm and landscaping contribute to the noise buffering. The berms and landscaping are a requirement of the previous approvals, which remains unchanged. An additional concern is for the wells in the area that could be affected by mining closer to the property line. Under finding of fact 2.2 asks if amending the special exception to reduce the setback will affect the use and enjoyment of adjacent properties. Staff contends the prior approval was granted with the understanding that the residential uses would have a 1,000-foot minimum buffer. Just because the zoning ordinance changed does not mean that the prior approval and its requirements were arbitrary or inferior. It is understood by all that these mining activities will eventually cease, and the impacts on the surrounding area, dust, noise, heavy truck traffic, tracking on the roads, will also cease. Prolonging the life of the gravel pit means the impacts on the neighbor's use and enjoyment of their property is prolonged equally as much. Finding of fact 2.3 is concerned about the reduced setback impacting the future development of the area. Residential development has gradually spread as close to the special flood hazard area as it can get. Since mining operations have existed in the area for over 50 years and residential uses continue to be built and sold nearby, it does not appear to have much of an impact on the immediate area as the special flood hazard area. Finding of fact 2.4 asks if there are adequate facilities to accommodate amending the reduced setback. In this case, the accommodating facility would be the earth berms and landscaping to help with noise reduction. And while it is much more of a process than a physical resource, the petitioner's flow chart for resolving well complaints is a useful tool. Finding of fact 2.5 asks about the access to the site. The access points are unchanged by the reduced setback, but reducing the setback and extending the life of the gravel pit will extend the years of heavy truck traffic affecting this area. Finding of fact 2.6 seeks to confirm that the use is permitted as a special exception in the ag zoning district and that all other requirements will be met. Staff can confirm that mineral extraction is on the list of special exception uses in the ag district, and all other requirements pertaining to the previous approvals will be met. And lastly, staff does not recommend approval of the petitioner's request to reduce the setback because finding of facts 2.1, 2.2, and 2.5 have not been satisfied. So, gentlemen, we're open for discussion on this request.
What does staff recommend again?
Not to prove it. 2.1 and 2.2, and then the last one here on the access points.
One's the wells,
Yeah,
2 is the dust, noise, big trucks, traffic. 2.5 is dirt on the highway.
well, normally I always agree with staff recommendations, but as they point out by our own words here, on 2.2, the neighbor's use and enjoyment of their property is prolonged equally as much. They're moving in like crazy out there, so that does not seem to be too important to me. Wells, maybe one of these days, I do not know, have certainly no idea what's going on, but one of these days we'll probably have a water supply to different places in this area. We have a water company right there right now. And on 2.5, as referenced by the big wreck that they had up there just a little bit ago, which was agricultural, as I understand it. Don't really know, but there's an awful lot of gravel pits up there, and I don't know that this is going to make that big a difference. They're asking not to increase the volume, as I understand it, but to increase the longevity. And from a tax standpoint, that certainly sounds like a good deal to me. That's all I have.
Yeah, I don't always agree with you, Bill, but I do on some of these tonight. I go back to, if you look at that area, and I drive it every day, as I know probably Fred does as well, because we kind of live the operations in between where you live and where I live. We've got a concrete plant there on the same side of the road, north side of 144. We've got gravel pit concrete plant on the south side. We gave permission for a special concrete plant or asphalt plant to go in on the south side of that. And then if you go, that area and then go north on Smoky Road, there's another gravel pit up on the right-hand side. And if you go north on Man Road, you've got another operation or two up there. It is an area for that, and the petitioner mentioned that, and even the attorney for Bargersville Water talked about you know, you go where the water's at, and that's where the water's at. That's why they put their wells there. I'm not opposed to this. I think when we put the 1,000-foot restriction on them originally, it was 1,000 feet. We didn't pick that number. That was the number that the ordinance required at that point in time, and the ordinance has changed, as well it should over time. Was reevaluated, and there's been some changes to it. If they came in today, I don't know that, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't allow them to operate within 150 feet of their boundary, under the same parameters they're asking for today. They're gonna mound it. I went back and looked, it looks like the closest property on that northeast corner belongs to Ihorns. According to the list of residents in the area that were contacted, they were contacted. It doesn't sound like they had a concern about the expansion of that. Now, I know also will note that in the letter that was sent out to the adjoining property owners, it didn't talk about expansion. It asked, what complaints do you have with the operation now? But Ihorn should have received notice of the hearing, is that correct? And what this hearing was all about tonight, and they're not here, and I'm hoping that that's because they're happy with, they're accepting of this and chose not to be here. So I would be in support of this application myself. Other discussion?
I guess I'm gonna be the odd person out here because I'm not agreeing, you know, I don't think they have truly met 2.1 and 2.2. I think is a factor. There's still some general welfare for the people around there, the existing wells, with those wells, and I don't think changing that expansion from 1,000 feet to 150 feet it's going to be beneficial. I think, it's going to be, more you add in the operation areas, more it's going to infringe on somewhere in air quality, noise levels, and everything else of some of these neighbors around, whether they're here or not. I think our job is part to look out for them, whether they're here or not. And I don't think, it's like staff says, 2.5. That's right on the edge. That's right on the edge. But I don't think they've conformed to meet 2.1, 2.2 on the thing.
Okay, other discussion?
I'm kind of leaning with Fred. The area.
Gordon, any comments?
Personally, I think we're gonna need the gravel and all this in the future, as many roads and everything we build and overpasses. We're gonna need the gravel and the concrete, everything. But people need their wells too, so.
Any other discussion? Open for a motion.
I guess the interesting thing about this is that we all stay friends, even no matter how we vote. We've had some other things come up where, people bought houses and then they built big warehouses right next to it or planned to it, and we approved that. I will make a motion to approve public hearing SE-22-07A based on the finding of facts.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Say aye.
Aye.
All against? Same sign. So it's 4-1, and it is approved. Thank you. Whoop, you okay? Yep. We all good here? All right. All right, our next item on the agenda is under new business. It's public hearing U-22-04. James Greider is requesting a use variance to establish a non-retail meat processing facility in an I-1 zoning district. The property is located at 1083 South Old State Road 67 in Jefferson Township. And for this application, I have Mr. Greider and one other signed up in support, and I have 9 folks signed up in opposition. Mr. Greider, if you'll come up to the podium. Can you guys hear me all right back here? I should have asked this earlier. Yeah. Okay, all right. We have 9 people signed up in opposition to this, so it's my discretion, and I'm going to exercise that this evening. I'm going to limit you to 2 minutes each in your opposition to this time at the podium, and I'll cut you off if you go over that. So my advice to you is get your point out. Don't repeat what others have already stated. If you've got something fresh to add, that's what we prefer to hear. But otherwise, we'll get started with Mr. Greider giving us his name and address, and then he's going to explain to us exactly what it is he wants to do there and why he feels the board should grant his request for the exception here, or the variance. Mr. Greider.
Now, you want the address of the property or my home address?
Your home address, Mr.
Okay.
Greider.
Yeah, I'm James Greider. I live at 6065 Beach Grove Drive, Martinsville. That's my home address.
Okay.
Basically, what I'm asking for is just to basically reopen the shop back up like it was before, to allow people to bring animals to browse the process, or I can provide the animals. And
Okay, I'm
deer.
gonna stop you for just a second. Excuse me for a minute. Can everybody hear Mr. Greider? All right, so if you can't, you got 2 options. You can move closer to the front of the room if there's seats available. It looks like there are. And I'm gonna ask Mr. Greider to speak more into the microphone so everybody can hear him. But if you can't hear him, come up so you can hear him now. All right, sorry, Mr. Greider, go ahead.
Okay. But what I'm wanting to do is just to basically process animals like they used to there, have people, they can bring their animals where we can process it, or we can provide the animals for the people to process. And in the future, we want to do deers, process deers. And that's,
You're basically using the old Pearson place, are you not?
yes. Yes, which was in operation for a while there.
I'm not familiar with the old Pearson place. Tell me, there was a meat processing facility there previously?
Yes. I don't know his name, but we brought up his wife, and they used to run a meat processing there. We don't want to sell the meat, we just basically want to provide a service where people can bring their animals, or we can have the animals, they can pick them, and we can process it for them.
So what kind of animals are we talking about?
Goats, sheep, pigs, deers. We won't have deers, just in deer season when they want to bring them to us. And it'll be state inspected.
So, whoa. How big is this building? How many animals are you gonna have there at one time? Where are you gonna keep them? Are they bringing them in dead or alive? If they're alive, where are they gonna be penned up? How are you gonna take care of them? How many are you gonna have? What are you doing to contain the animals? Who's gonna feed them?
I will be the one feeding Mira and my son, but mostly me, because I'll be living in the house there. And we've started putting up new fence, and we'll put up new fence, but most of them will be contained inside the building. There's a separate part for the animals.
So if I wanted to get a pig processed there, do I just show up at your door and say, here you go?
Yeah, you'd show up, and either if you had one, you would call in advance and tell us you're bringing one, and then we'd make arrangement that way.
Have you done this kind of thing before?
Yes,
Where?
in Morgan County,
Where?
over by Monrovia.
Where?
It's just right on Keller Hill Road there.
What's the name of it?
Halal Butchery.
I'm sorry?
It's Halal Butchery. Basically, they don't do pigs there, but I want to open up where we can do pigs.
Is this going to be your full-time job?
Yes,
And I see in your application, you're proposing being open 8 to 5, 7 days a week. Some days we won't be open, not sure which days.
right.
And then, in this building that's there, when's the last time it was up in operation?
That I'm not sure. Now, the state has came out and looked at it, but they said I need to go through you guys first before I could go through them.
Okay, and I'm just guessing you're on a septic system out there where you're at?
Yes.
And is it adequate? Have we had that inspected yet, or is that to come?
As far as the building, they have not, our plan on doing is put a new system in out there. And the guy will be out this week to draw soil samples, because we could not find on file of the old septic system there, because it's separate from the house.
So are you processing animals there now?
No,
Okay, do you live there?
not at this point in time, no.
Okay, do you have animals that you keep there?
I have a few goats there and a few sheep.
Okay, how many goats and sheep do you keep there?
I think I got about 6 sheep right now and about 15 goats. And I've got some geese.
And some what?
Geese.
Oh, okay.
But we don't butcher the geese, they're just there.
And how do you keep those animals confined in your property there?
There's fence up there. We did have a couple of a tree fell over the fence, and we've got to fix that. But there's another fence up there. And I'm going to run a new fence all the way down through there. They will be contained. But the most of them will be inside the barn, not running loose in the pasture. And if anybody brings any animals, they will not be in the pasture. They'll be in the barn at all times.
So when you process an animal, what happens with the waste product?
Anything that they don't take will go into barrels, 50-gallon barrels, and will be hauled off.
Who's going to accept this offal? Who's going to accept this? And are you going to be state inspected?
Yes. Yes, the state comes out once a year. We have the water, the drinking water, we have it sampled twice a year.
So you're going to possibly, I'm familiar with the operation. You're going to be doing a day that you're going to be killing cattle. Are you going to have the state inspector there on that day then?
No, they come out twice a year because we do not resell the meat. This is their meat, so we're not going to be USDA inspected.
You're not going to be state inspected or USDA?
Not USDA, we state.
Okay. So how many beef do you figure that you could kill and process in a day in the cooling facilities for this?
Well, we won't be doing a lot of beef, mostly pork and goats and sheep. We will have a cooler, because they had a cooler and freezer in there, but we want to update that, put a new cooler and freezer in there.
How many, you'll be killing goats, sheep, pigs, all
Pigs
at the
most.
same day?
It'd be different days. Just depends on the calls, people, what they want. Maybe about 20 a week, goats and sheep.
Always been a great deal of cattle being killed in this county.
Yep.
And I know that Pearson's did that.
Yes.
I've had meat processed there, known them for quite a few years when they were in operation. Who is going to accept all your waste,
The waste?
all your offal?
Well, what we usually do, there's the landfill over in Danville. We haul it to them.
On a
In
daily
barrels.
basis? Every
Yes.
other day?
Well, it
week?
depends on at least once a week. During the summer, it'd be at least twice a week.
The 20 animals will probably fill what, about 7 to 8 barrels? Head, hides, hooves, stomach content?
Well, like on the goats, sheep, they take the heads and the hides.
You're doing something that I've never done. I raise sheep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
People bring their animals there and you slaughter them.
Yes. They will, the process, we will do it for them, or they can do it themselves, as far as the goats and sheep. The pigs, we'll do it on our own.
You do pets?
Huh?
You do pets?
Pets?
Yeah. Cats and dogs?
No, no. No, farm animals only.
You mentioned the fact that if they want to kill it themselves,
Yes,
this is basically the Muslim trade.
yes, it's my.
You're not going to kill something where you killed a pig.
No, there's two separate spots for that. The pig will not be where the sheep and goats are.
That plant that big? Didn't used to be.
Well, there's two rooms there they got, where you can process one and the other.
Okay,
You have another one somewhere?
we've got 2 more in this
How
county.
big of a holding field, how big of a holding field do you have for these animals when they bring them in there?
Well, when other people bring them in, they'll be inside the barn. They won't be out in the field there. Altogether, there's I think like 7 acres on the whole property. Plus, I have another place where I live at to put my own personal stock.
No intermingling with the animals that you currently have there at all, right?
Any what?
No intermingling with the animals that you currently have there, between what people bring in and what you have?
Oh, no, they will not be together.
How many coolers do you have there?
Any what?
How many coolers?
Coolers? At this point, well, we're going to we want to put a new one, new cooler and a new freezer in.
You're going to run into some religious problems.
So you mentioned that you're gonna sell your own meat from your own animals, correct?
We'll have the animals if somebody wants one to butcher, yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes, I'll have some if somebody wants them, yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, we will just, they can bring them to us and we can do it.
So you are gonna be selling at retail there? You're gonna have meat for sale?
Well, no, there'll be the animal. The way it works, there'll be 2 processes. They'll buy the animal and then they'll have us process it. So there's 2 steps there. We will not sell the meat itself. It'll be just the animal, then process, then meat.
Okay.
Because we don't resell the meat. And it'll be the state inspection, it'll be stamped either on the bag or the product, not for resale.
Okay, so if I came in and I said I want a sheep, then you would slaughter the sheep and dress it out and package it up for me and I'd pick it up, right?
Right.
And is there does that require any kind of inspection from anybody?
The state inspection, no. They come out, basically check the place, make sure it's clean and up to code to their, just basically a little different than what Pearson's had. Because we won't be selling the meat, we'll just be selling the animal or processing the animal for people.
So you mentioned that your byproduct, your waste is going to go into a 55-gallon drum.
Yes.
And where do those get stored?
There's a room on the building there, we can be stored in there and it will be hauled out.
So they won't sit outside?
No, nothing will be set outside there.
And then you take that to the landfill at Danville and they accept that
Yes.
and they get rid of it, and then you bring that barrel back, and then what happens to that barrel?
It'll be cleaned and reused to put the insides in again. Anything that's not being used.
So you clean that out, I would imagine it's probably gonna have some leftover inside that barrel. Where do you get rid of that?
Well, there's usually nothing left because you can clean it out up there. We just make sure we bring water and just clean it back, clean it the best you can where there's no chunks of anything.
Okay. Gentlemen, other questions?
How do we kill them? Well, they'll be, they got a thing that'll shoot a rod through, well,
A captive bolt gun?
yeah. Or now, some of the religions, they want to kill them themselves, which is state inspected, and they go through all that. It's all state. But this is all, it is all, the state does inspect the whole thing.
Is this waste and debris coming up there in the barrels, is that going to be contained in a climate-controlled area?
Well, that's one reason we want the cooler for, too. We can store it in a cooler. That way, if we don't if there's not a lot to take, that way it can stay in the airport, it'll be cool for a few days, and then haul it out.
But no outside storage on it, right?
No.
Do the people have to tell you where they got the animal, where they are coming from? I mean, it could, for all that we're thinking about, it could be animals that are shown at the fair.
Yeah, I mean, if it's their animal, they want it butchered by,
That's why those kids always cry there when they see them going.
yeah, I mean, if it's there, I mean, I don't.
Gentlemen, any other questions at this time?
No. Not at this time.
Bill? Jerry?
Is there a way that you restrain them so they don't escape? Like you see on TV, cows get out of these slaughterhouses and stuff and they run all over the city?
Well, I mean,
How do you keep them
like I
in
said,
there?
once
Just
if
in
people
pen?
bring, if anybody brings them, they'll be contained inside the building. And then I've got some new fence up. I'm gonna fence the whole place with new fence before it's done, before we do anything as far as that. And like I said, we will be if you guys pass it, we'll be state inspected.
Other questions, gentlemen? No? Thank you. Thank you. Angela, is it Van Matter? Okay, all right. Is there anyone else in support of this application? All right, I'll go to the list of folks that signed up in opposition to it. Again, we're going to impose a 2-minute restriction on you here, so get to your point, make your statement. This isn't a time or place for you to ask us questions. If you have a question about this operation that wasn't discussed by the applicant, you can phrase that as, I'd like to know how he's going to do X, and then we'll bring him back up and ask him, okay? All right, Gordon Lane. Do you want to get up and speak? No? Ainer, thank you. Would you like to speak? Okay.
My name is Ainer Lane. I live at 1071 Old State Road, 67 South. I literally live right across the street from the proposed site. I have several concerns. Property value dropping, odor control, we're on a well, and I know at other meat processing plants or businesses, they've had well contamination seep into our, not my well, but other wells. And I understand that that used to be a place, but at that time it was farmland, and now it's more residential land. There's a lot more houses that are there now than when it was a processing plant before. So I know that when we purchased the place, we recently moved in March. And my concern is, in 10 years, if that place is up and running, am I going to be able to recoup what we paid for the property?
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Nope.
How long have you lived there?
We moved in March.
This year?
Yes, of this year.
Okay.
How close are you to it?
We are literally across the street.
All right, I'm going to ask you to come up here, and I'm going to show you an aerial satellite picture and tell me if your house is on this. And if so, where is it?
This is his property, right?
This is his
We are in this house right here.
house.
Right here. This property right here, that's the church, and this is us.
Live in Hinesdale.
Yes.
All right. I'll pass that down so you guys can see where she lives. Any other questions, gentlemen, for Ms. Lake? No. Nope. Thank you, ma'am. Katrina Christ?
Hello, my name is Katrina Christ. I am here with my husband John this evening. We live at 1053 South Kaiser Lane, which is our front yard. We look directly out to this. So this is in our front yard. We purchased this home, which was brand newly built in November. This area, I know you mentioned Pearson had a meat processing facility there prior, which must have been years ago. This farmland's been divvied up into new homes. There's another new home next to us. We moved out here for the rural area, and it is a residential area. And the idea of having to look out my front door and not be able to open my windows or doors because of smell, we already have an issue with flies, it's devastating. I would have never bought a home there. Not to mention the issues that we've had with this individual who I've never met until this evening. With this property, I would not classify it as a good neighbor. I've had to make multiple calls to the non-emergency police department, as well as the animal control for the animals that he has on the property that are constantly stuck in the fence, which myself or my husband have to maneuver out with the goats getting their heads stuck. Nobody there to care for the animals, inadequate fencing. It is not a facility that should be opened in any capacity or have any type of business running out of it. If you live in the area, I would encourage you to drive along it. Come visit. It is not something that should be open for operations. And I do have pictures if you'd like me to show you where I live.
Thank you for that. Gentlemen, questions?
How long have you lived there?
We purchased the home in November. It was built, I believe it was done in a month prior. So, just in November.
November this past year?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And you mentioned calling the sheriff's department for animals loose, animals stuck in the fence?
Inadequate fencing. The animals are number of occasions. The goats are in our front yard, other people's front yards. Yes, there's nobody there monitoring these animals.
Okay. Can you come up here for a second?
Sure.
See if I marked your house right?
And I work from home, so I'm home all day.
That's you right here?
This is us.
Okay.
So this is the front of our house.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you. So I've added her house onto there, gentlemen, as well. Okay. Okay, any other questions for Ms. Christ?
I mean, an example I would like to say
Oh.
is,
Any other questions for Ms. Christ? Gentlemen,
No, I have none.
thank you.
okay.
Brent Hayden?
Hello, my name's Brent Hayden. I live at 1117 South Old State Road 67. I do have some concerns. I do know that the butcher shop that used to be there was 15-plus years ago. And as Katrina said, the neighborhood is a lot different now than what it used to be. If any of you guys have driven by, the property's not well-maintained. There's trash everywhere. It kind of looks like someone just kind of abandoned the whole place and left back everything that they had. The fencing, again, not adequate. Animals get out all the time. I do have pictures of last week where goats got out on Old State Road 67. So there was, I don't know, 15 or so. And that's not uncommon. They get out quite a bit, along with dogs and stuff like that that kind of terrorize the neighborhood, I guess you could say. I have also called animal control multiple times. I've spoken with a guy, George. I think he's the animal control guy down there. Talked to him 2 times in the past week. He stopped by one time. The animals that I called that were out were no longer out, or they left, went somewhere else. One of my biggest concerns is the proper disposal. I know that you can say you're gonna put stuff in 55-gallon barrels or whatever it is, but if you see how the property is currently presented, it just puts doubt in your mind that that would actually happen. I know that I have heard, and I have not seen it myself, but I've been told that there has been carcasses of sheep or goat, whatever it may be, that they have seen from their property. And again, I cannot attest to seeing it myself. I just heard others talking about it, or they've told me about it. So the biggest concerns that I have is just the cleanliness and the animals getting out, and really the upkeep and the disposal of such things. And I'm not in the meat processing market or whatever you want to call it, so I don't know much about it. But living right next to it with a bunch of other homeowners, again, 15 years ago, there wasn't that many people, I would assume. I know that there's multiple houses that are somewhat new, so having young kids of my own, I'm just concerned with the traffic, the animals, introducing new. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay.
Gentlemen, questions? So you live, get you come up here and show me where you're at. Here. Are you right there where I wrote Hayden? Yes. There we go, okay. Thank you very much. So as we're looking at the picture here, he is just to the left of it. You can see some, looks like dormer windows in his roof line there. Is that right? Okay. Thank you. How about John Christ? Okay, thank you, John. All right. Can't make out the writing, but lives at 1077 South Kaiser Lane.
Hi, I'm Diana Toomey, and I live at 1077 South Kaiser Lane, and I have lived there for 18 years. And I will say, I lived there when the Pearsons had their butcher shop, and we had lived there for 18 years, and he never, ever, one time while we lived there, used it. Now, my husband was good friends with him. My husband's deceased, and he was good friends with Pearson. But he never, while we lived there, we know that he didn't use it. I will say that. And I will also say I have had problems with his animals numerous times. I have a small dog. His animals has chased my dog, where my dog doesn't even want to go out in his yard. which is wrong. I live on 4 acres, and he can't even go out in his front yard. And I have a problem with that. I have a problem with thinking about the smell because the wind always blows from west to east. And if I want to open my windows, I don't want to smell any stinkage. That's part of a pleasure of mine to live out in the country. I built a new house out there, and I just want to enjoy it the rest of my life. And I don't feel like I have to smell all this. And he doesn't take care of his animals that he does have. I have a picture that I took of a goat carcass that was laying there for 2 weeks at least. It could have been longer, but I took a picture, and it had to be there long enough because the whole stomach area was decayed. It was gone, where the other animals had ate it. And it was there, and then one day I took the picture, and then it was gone early the next morning. Now, I'm not saying that anybody see me. I don't know why all of a sudden it come up missing. But it had been there for a good while. And the goats that he has gotten, that he had, they was so skinny, you could see their bones. Now, I don't know about the meat processing, but it's not anything that I would want to eat. And is what I'd say, because they did not look healthy. And they go everywhere. The fence line, it's opened. It's just not a good situation.
Thank you. Can you come up and show us where you live on my aerial picture here? Are you right here?
Yes.
How do I spell your last name?
Toomey, T-W-O-M-E-Y.
All right. If you could step back to the podium, please. Gentlemen, any questions for Ms. Toomey?
I have none.
So
No, I have none.
you've lived there 18 years, you said?
Yes.
And-
We had a mobile home. Yeah.
Okay. Have you lived there for 18 years?
Yes.
Okay. And then you said that the person that owned this before, that had the meat processing company there, in the 18 years that you've lived there, there was never meat processed there during that time? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Jeff Kaufman?
Hi, Jeff Kaufman, live at 1164 South Cunningham Lane. I knew Elsie and Kay Pearson. My great-grandparents lived where Brent and Sherry live now. I remember the butcher shop when I was a kid, but it's been a long time since that building's been used. The roof was caved in, and the fencing has not been updated since. One of my concerns is, I know Mr. Greider said that he operated a place in Morgan County. I have paper showing from Hendricks County. That's my concern is, down the road from my in-laws, there was a Greider that had been in trouble with animal cruelty and stuff like that. And I found some stuff on my case from about the same thing that he's trying to do with opening a butcher shop. Anywhere from animal cruelty to unsafe buildings to junk, debris, zoning ordinances, and not applying for permits and stuff like that. I can leave these with you guys if you guys want these.
Does it have Mr. Greider's name on it?
Yes.
It does. I think I'd be interested in seeing that. Gentlemen?
Here's his name here, but it gives the address.
Get a copy of it.
You guys can have these, it's on my case if you want. But here is his address, it was in Clayton. So it's not
Okay,
too
all
far.
right. All right, fair enough. All right. Thank you. And I've got it on the map where you live there. Gentlemen, any questions for Mr. Coughlin?
You say you live on Cunningham?
Yes.
Okay.
Quentin Ritter?
Hello, Quentin Ritter, live at 1073 South Kaiser Lane. Some of the concerns I have, back in, it was April, May, we had the big storm that rolled through, took out all the power through town and everything. That storm took out a tree that was actually located on Mr. Greider's property, fell over on our property. He has not been the most neighborly of people, so to say. We asked him about the tree. He came over, basically looked at it and said, "Not my problem." And again, with the animals escaping, it is a big deal. Ducks, geese, goats, cows, basically any animal he had over there have escaped from his property. I live directly across from him, just like John and Katrina. And I have 2 small children. I do not need them around animals that we don't know how they're going to react. And that is my major concern. Lack of a neighborly business, I guess you could say. And yeah, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Gentlemen, questions for Mr. Ritter?
None. How long have you lived there?
July of last year. So, it's also a new build. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Charles Heflin? Okay. And Angela, is this the matter you're interested in? Angela Van Meter? Oh, okay, all right. Okay, was there anybody else on this one that signed up, thought they signed up? Just make sure we're not missing anybody. No? Okay. All right, Mr. Greider. Step back up to the podium if you would, and we'll give you a chance to offer,
Okay,
to speak here about
okay,
maybe
for
what you
one,
heard.
the gentleman in the orange, I have never talked to him. I know when he's talking about the tree, I haven't talked to him, but
You're addressing us, Mr.
it's okay.
Greider.
The other guy, okay, the guy to the left of me, I have never talked to. The guy on the property over to the right, which his tree fell, but it was on the property line. We've talked, we cleaned it up, straightened it up. As far as what that guy said about charges, yes, that was me. But if he would have looked further into the thing, we went to a jury trial over it. Not guilty on every charge. Not guilty. I was arrested for reckless driving. I'm not going to say I wasn't. In my driveway, I got arrested for cruelty to the animal because I had a baby goat in the basement I was trying to save. I got arrested for a thin cow which had a sticker on its back that I clearly bought. 5 charges. Went to court. They dropped 1 charge. Found not guilty in every charge. Yes, there has animals got out, but like I said at the beginning, we are in process of putting new fence up around the whole place. Yes, goats have got stuck in the fence. That fence will come down, well, it'll stay there, but I will put up goat fence on that side to prevent it. My nephew has took care of some of the stuff over this summer, and yes, we did lose one, and you will see a thin animal here and there, because if they look on the back, you'll see a sticker. You buy them thin, you take care of them, and they will fatten up. But as far as fencing, yes, the place will be fencing. Regardless, if I get this passed or not, there will be a farm there. I just want a business, and if it's more crucial for them as a business gets passed, because it will be state inspected, and it will be guaranteed to be, say, the way the state says, because if it is not ran the way the state says, they will close me down. But if the state doesn't do it, then I'm allowed to have animals, and no one can say nothing about it. I don't want to be into it with my neighbors. I will put new fence up, I'll guarantee that. To the side to the left of me, the ones that don't like to see the animals, that said they get stuck, my plans are to put a privacy fence up there. That way, they do not have to see my animals or me, but I do understand it will be a farm. No matter if we have a slaughterhouse there or not, it will be a farm. I will raise animals there. By it being
Go ahead, we can hear you.
by being a processing farm, it will be state inspected, and we will have new fence up. And if I do not follow by the rules, everything I'm doing now is a waste of time because I will be shut down. So I have to follow the rules of the state.
How long have you owned this property?
Is it perfect? No. It will be better when we get done. Before I get operation, there will be new fence put up, and it'll be state inspected before anything can be done. Before we're allowed to even open it, the state will have to give the go on it. And as far as he said about he doesn't believe the barrels be contained, well, it's like this. If we do not contain it, the state will say, no, you cannot operate this anymore. And I don't want to spend the money out to do this just to be shut down by the state. So as far as my word, you guys don't know me, and they don't know me, you guys can't believe my word, but you can believe this. The state will shut me down if I do not follow the guidelines. And the guidelines is you can't have the waste laying around. And as far as they're talking about stuff in the driveway, yes, I've got building materials which will be removed when this is all said and done. Everything will be cleaned up and business form, I guess you want to call it. And they do have a complaint, and there is a guy that lives in the back, in my back house back there. It's my nephew, and I've done told him, and I'm going to have a letter sent to him. If the dog is not under control, he's got a dog, it gets out. I told him if he does not get it locked up, he'll be evicted if the dog is not gone. Because I had it at my house for about a couple weeks ago, and he's supposed to have got his fence fixed. I don't know. I'm going over there this week to do stuff there, and I'm planning on moving into the house here shortly. There's just been a lot of things going on in my life. I lost my wife, so I have not moved out yet to my other place yet. Right now, I'm staying at my house with my son. So when I feel more comfortable, I will be moving in there. But we do have to, like I said, if we don't follow the guidelines by the state, this is all wasteful. And we're talking a lot of money, to finish doing what we got to do, putting the fence up and everything, and the whole 9 yards we will be underneath the state rules.
Thank you. Gentlemen, questions?
No. You say your nephew is the one that's...
He lives in the back house, and I've done told him on numerous occasions, do something about the dog. And I've done told him, if the dog is not under control, either get rid of it or get it in the pen that it will stay in, he will be evicted. Because I don't want the neighbors neighbors mad at me because of his dog running everywhere. And as far as the animals, once I get the total new fence put up everywhere, they will know the issue, especially if the ones getting their head stuck in there. Because I'll have goat fence up, which will be smaller wire where they cannot get their head through there. That will be taken care of. And I always had plans on, but I'm not going to do it. And if we get this passed, I am going to put a privacy fence between me and the neighbors to the left of me. That's where the modular homes are.
Is there a reason you haven't I see here you've owned that since January of 2021? And you have animals out there. Is there a reason you haven't put adequate fencing?
Well, we had fence pretty good until a tree took that one side out, and we had one goat that was causing a lot of trouble, which I took her back to my place where I live now. That way she was not causing problems. But once they took the tree, took the corner out, I have not had a chance to fix it yet. We have had some issues with some stuff getting out. But like I said, when we put new fence up, Because whether if I get this passed or not, it will be a farm. I will have new fence put up all the way through there, where nothing can get their head stuck, nothing can get out, but I will not have privacy fence. But I will have fence where it will accurately control the animals no matter what happens. Because I don't want to be into it with the neighbors. I want to be along with all the neighbors. I know we all won't see eye to eye all the time, but I am going to put a new fence up totally around the whole place.
Thank you. Any other questions, gentlemen?
No.
Nope. All right, thank you very much. All right, so we've heard from the applicant, we've heard from concerned citizens, we've heard from the applicant again. So at this point, we'll end our public hearing, go into the public meeting phase. This is an application for a use variance, and in order for the board to grant this, again, we have to agree that the applicant meets certain findings and facts. The first being that the proposed use variance describe the proposed use of the property, type of use, hours of operations, access, necessary construction, employees, et cetera. The applicant has written meat processing 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., 7 days a week. Some days we won't be open, but not sure which days. Septic inspection, me and maybe 2 others. Number 2, standards for evaluation. The statement is the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community, and the applicant indicates that's true, and states that the state inspected sanitary, any remains will be put into barrels with lids and be properly disposed of in a landfill or company will pick up. Under number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The applicant indicates that statement is true and has written, was a business before, no problems in parking. It's on a private drive. Under 2.3, the statement is the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property involved. The applicant indicates that's true and states to allow us to start processing again the way it used to. Under 2.4, the statement is the strict application of the terms in the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought. The applicant indicates that statement is true and states there is a demand for processing in this area. Most places are all booked up for a year. And under 2.5, the statement says the approval does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan. The applicant indicates that statement is true and says, no, it doesn't interfere with the comprehensive plan. For the technical reports, the surveyor states, I believe this was a meat processing plant prior. If any new construction, they must submit plans to my office. For the health department, they state inspections are conducted at state level, as well as permitting unless they open a retail section. Then there's another one in here from the health department says the IDOH commercial division will need to determine if the existing septic system is adequate for the proposal. For the staff recommendation, they've written under finding of fact 2.1, ask if the use will be injurious to the general welfare of the community because the animal processing will be non-retail. This use is unlikely to be detrimental to the general public due to the limited volume that can be processed on a daily basis. Finding 2.2, ask if property values will be adversely impacted by allowing the use at this location. If in fact meat processing has occurred on the property in the past, it does not appear to have an adverse impact since the area around it has continued to be further subdivided for residential purposes. Finding of fact 2.3 asks what condition peculiar to the property creates the need for the variance. And then they go on to say the I-1 zoning does not allow for meat processing. So the existing zoning of the property creates the petitioner's need for the variance. Under 2.4, It asks for unnecessary hardship that occurs if the variance is not allowed. The petitioner purchased the property with the belief that he could resume animal processing that once occurred on the property. He was unaware that the grandfathering did not extend to him indefinitely, nor that the industrial zoning did not allow meat processing. Under 2.5, wants to ensure that the proposed use is not in conflict with the projected development of the area. This area is labeled in the comp plan as environmentally sensitive due primarily to the amount of special flood hazard area directly to the south of this location. However, this, nor the adjacent properties, are in the SFHA. Development has continued in a slow but orderly fashion. If this property were zoned ag, non-retail meat processing would be allowed by special exception, much like a home-based business. As such, one can reasonably assume this use would not interfere with the goals of the comp plan. Because this petition adequately satisfies all finding of fact, staff recommends approval of the petitioner's requested use variance with the condition that the use only operates as a custom processing facility with no retail sales to the general public. Gentlemen, open for discussion.
I'm very familiar with this. I supplied Pearson's with livestock when they were in business. I've had my animals processed there on an occasion or two. I refer to it as Hinesdale. I expect many of you do. I don't know how long Pearson's have not been processing, but it's been quite a while. Nobody indicated that. It's the right business, it's the wrong area. That area has changed. There are people all around. I don't know how you could effectively remove, on a good old hot day, in processing very many animals. You're going to fill quite a few barrels. Hauling them clear to Danville is going to be rather inconvenient when you quit at 5 o'clock at night and try and get rid of the offal before you start killing the next day. 2 acres is just not the right place anymore for a processing plant, in my opinion. Retail has nothing to do with it. You're processing animals, how it's sold out there, one big lump when it's frozen. The ethnic markets, there's some places in surrounding counties where they do ethnic processing, and it's quite interesting when you deal with these people, because what he has said, as I interpret it, it won't work.
Gentlemen, other discussion?
I feel a lot of ways about the same as Bill does on this thing. I don't think that putting this in would be, in my opinion, on the fact, finding the facts on 2.1, in the general welfare of the community. I don't think it's I don't think it'd be a good situation to be into it, because, you know, there's I don't think a good exemplary manner of taking into consideration your neighboring property and stuff has been taken care of so far in a year and a half of the thing. I don't see much changing in that.
Yeah, I agree. That was a good point that you brought up about if the fences were an issue, why are you waiting to fix the fences if it's approved? And then,
I think there's a need for meat packing plants in the communities, of all communities, but I don't think this is the right one.
any other discussion?
I think an operation like this belongs in an industrial area, not in a residential area.
Okay. Other discussion? Open for a motion. Nope. Open for motion.
Make a motion, we deny request number U-2204 for the following reasons. Item number one is the reason why I'm saying it's be injurious to the public health and safety and the morals and the general welfare of the community. Because of the reasons stated that has occurred on the property, and I don't think it's laid out enough in this day and time with the progression of building of all the houses and property around there, that I don't think this would be good for it in that situation.
I have a motion to deny. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
I have a second to that motion. All in favor of denying application U-22-04, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Thank you. Sir, you've been heard. Just leave the building, please. Just leave the building. Thank you. All right. Okay, well, we're going to give you a chance to think about that. We're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to come back and hear Mr. Coffey here next. But 5 minutes by my watch.
Mr. Coffey still here?
Back at it. Next item on the agenda is public hearing U-22-05. Dale Coffey, on behalf of G. Curtis Properties, is requesting a use variance to allow an auto repair / wrecker service, vehicle storage, salvage yard in a B3 zoning district. The property is located at 9680 North Little Point Road in Adams Township. And we have Mr. Coffey and Mr. Curtis signed up to speak, and no one in opposition or as a interested party or concerned citizen. Mr. Coffey.
Thank you, gentlemen. Again, my name is Dale Coffey. I'm here tonight representing G. Curtis Properties LLC on this request for a use variance. Gordon Curtis, the member of the LLC, is here with me tonight also to answer any questions that I may not be able to answer. We're here tonight simply to ask for approval of this use variance to basically legalize an operation that has been happening since the mid-'80s on this site. Those of you who are familiar, have been here a while around the county like I have. This was started by Cecil Koger back in the mid-'80s. It has always been an operation such it is now with the wrecker service, with salvage, auto repair, that sort of thing. And so it has evolved a bit over the years, but the same general use is applied. Mr. Curtis bought the business along with a partner from Mr. Koger in 2007, carried on the operation that existed at that time, and then he bought his partner out in 2011 and has operated it as his sole owner as far as the LLC is concerned since 2011, so about 11 years now. He used to have a salvage license to the state of Indiana. The state kind of changed things around a little bit a few years ago, and so he lost his salvage license. He started inquiring again about how to get it back, and when he did so, the state notified him that although he may be a legal non-conforming use, they were not going to reissue his salvage license unless he got the appropriate zoning approved through Morgan County. And so that leads us to where we're at this evening. The reason one of the downfalls to not having a salvage license is although he can be a salvage yard, he has to acquire and allow things to stack up. And so what you see up there, if you've been up by there recently, quite a bit of metal stacked. And if he gets a salvage license, because there are not a lot of salvage license given at this point, certainly within central Indiana, he'll be able to truck that metal out of there virtually on a daily basis. So you're not going to see the warehousing, if you will, of the metal stacked up like you do now, because he'll be able to salvage it, take it out of there by the truckload, if not every day, then once every 2 days. The operation hopefully will be more efficient than it is now. Saw on the staff report that they looked at a fencing. He does have a chain link fence around the property at this time. It is a 6-foot chain link fence. And he's had plans to put up a meshing material which would not be see-through over that chain link fence. So he has the product, just has to get it done. So we're not opposed to doing screening. What we would ask the board to consider, though, is to allow us, instead of an 8-foot fence, a 6-foot fence with the screening. He currently, with the chain link he has, and above that, he's electrified it, so he's got strands going on up. But the meshing would, in fact, bring it so you could not see through it off of that interchange there on I-70. So that would be what we would ask the board to consider, and we're not opposed certainly to the screening. I believe that's probably appropriate. It is currently B3. If you look at the maps, the comprehensive plan, that area is designed, or at least identified, as an area that would be industrial type zoning. I think maybe there's a roadway maybe that separates it, but where that area is, again, it is mixed use currently. You've got commercial, you've got your I-2, you got some R1, you got some ag up and through there. but the comp plan does identify this area, we believe, as industrial type and the same use as we have here. So that's our request this evening, and we believe we can meet the requirements for the findings of fact as we laid out in our petition, our proposed findings. Again, we're not opposed to the screening, but we would ask that it be allowed 6 feet instead of 8 feet. Be happy to answer any questions you may have, and if I can't answer any, got Mr. Curtis here, hopefully they can.
Boy, it's either hot or cold. Questions for Mr. Coffey?
I have none. It's, being from this area, it's always been there. We've had in the past, we've had asphalt plants, we had truck sales, we had a motorcycle shop that we've handled in this board here, so, but it's been consistently what I think it is what it looks like today.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
Question, but it looks a lot busier today than it did a few years ago. Good job up there keeping stuff tied down.
That highway's busier than it was a few years back, too.
Yeah.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
He's gonna be, you say he's gonna be doing the recycling of the scrap metal there and everything?
Yeah, he what he does now, he'll bring a car in, obviously all the fluids and everything are drained out of it, according to the state law, that it is basically warehouse there, stacked there until he can get it out of there. He's gonna be doing the same thing, although he'll be able to get it out of there a lot quicker if he gets a salvage license.
We're talking about, you say you got a chain link fence on that now?
Yes.
It didn't, I was just by there last week and I didn't see, much change with the fence or anything. It's still
The chain link fence is on the I-70 side, behind the buildings and comes around.
yeah.
And that's what he has designed to put the mesh on. He just hasn't done it yet, but he does have the material, so.
I didn't understand. Hear you.
The chain link that sits on this I-70 side, that's what he has the material, the mesh material to apply to that chain link so it makes it a solid barrier. You can't see through it. He just hasn't got that completed yet, but that is the plan. He does have the material.
I think there's a fence from here back, but not up here. From here back, he has fence too.
Gentlemen, any other questions for Mr. Coffey?
No.
No, thank you. Mr. Curtis, did you want to speak? You don't have to. I'm asking if you'd like to. Okay. All right, we have no one else signed up on this application, either in opposition to or in support of or as a interested person. So we'll end our public hearing and go into the public meeting phase. Again, this is an application for a use variance. The applicant has to meet certain findings of facts, first being the question or the statement is describe the proposed use of the property. They have written the property will continue to be used as it is and has been since the mid-1980s as an auto repair garage and record service, storage and salvage yard. The hours of operation will not change, and currently those hours of operation are from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to noon on Saturday, closed on Sunday. Access to the property is from the county road, which is Little Point Road. Number of employees will not change, and currently there are 18 employees. Number 2 makes a statement under 2.1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. The applicant indicates that's a true statement and states this particular property is being used for an auto repair, record service, storage, and salvage yard for various automobiles since the mid-1980s. The property is located adjacent to Interstate 70 and continues continued use will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. The property has housed a viable business since the mid-1980s, and the community has continued to support the business, and nothing conducted on the business is injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Under 2.2, it makes a statement, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. They've indicated that statement is true and write the following. The proposed use will continue to be the same as it has been since the mid-1980s. The area adjacent to this property has existed with this particular use since the mid-1980s, and there are no proposed changes to the use. That being auto repair, garage, record service, storage, and salvage yard for vehicles. Nothing will be conducted in the future that will be changed, and thus it will not substantially be adverse to the area adjacent to the property. Under 2.3, the statement is the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property involved. The applicant indicates that's a true statement and writes, this particular property has been in operation since the mid-1980s under a commercial zoning classification. The use of the property has been for an automobile repair business, and record service operates from the business. As part of the record service, automobiles have been towed to the property for which they have been stored for a period of time, and even crashed vehicles have been brought into the property where they will be stored until they are moved off-site for salvage value. In the past, the state of Indiana has given the business a salvage permit. However, that permit lapsed. The business is in need of renewing its salvage permit and must have the appropriate zoning approval in which to do so. Due to the operation of the business all these years, that condition is peculiar to this piece of property, and it's respectfully asked that a use variance to operate the salvage business be granted so that a permit may be obtained from the state. Under 2.4, it makes a statement, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which a variance is sought. The applicant indicates that's a true statement and is written. Under current zoning ordinance, this particular site, the operation of an automobile repair business, towing service, and salvage yard would not be allowed in a commercial district. The particular zoning needed would be heavy industrial with a special exception. Again, this particular business has been operating since the mid-1980s on this particular site and considered a non-legal conforming use. A variance is being sought to allow for the use of the property in regards to a salvage business to obtain a permit from the state. A salvage business has been used in the past on this site, and a permit has been issued prior to it lapsing. To apply the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship, as this business has been in existence at this site since the mid-1980s. Under 2.5, the approval does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan. The applicant indicates that statement is true and writes, the comprehensive plan outlines the particular area for industrial use. Therefore, the current use and the use proposed under the variance fall strictly in line with the comprehensive plan. Health Department states they have no objections. Surveyor notes that they must submit an erosion and drainage plan to their office before any new construction. Staff made recommendations outlining under each finding of fact and concludes with, for these reasons, staff recommends the approval of the petitioner's request for a use variance with the following requirements. A minimum of 8-foot screening shall be installed around the perimeter of the property in the form of a solid fence or a landscape berm, and it shall be installed within 6 months of the date of the variance approval. Gentlemen, open for discussion.
I guess my only question is, I did not know, I don't even want to ask Laura to get up, but it's a 6-foot fence right now? And you want a solid 8-foot fence, is what this request is. Thank you. Which strikes me as a logical request to approve. With a minimum of an 8-foot screening to be installed around the perimeter of the property in the form of a solid fence and or a landscape berm, and shall be installed within 6 months of the date of the variance approval. I guess my question would be to Mr. Coffey, is that an adequate or a reasonable request as far as you're concerned?
As to the timeframe, I believe 6 months is probably adequate. Maybe 7 or 8 just to get us into late spring, I guess, next year. But, and I guess a point of clarification for me would be, again, if we're going to go to 6 or 8, I understand. We'd rather have 6, but I understand if you say, no, we want 8. But what I would like to know is if he's able to use the mesh. So, I mean, it's not, that would be a solid fence, if you will, but it's just, the material would be chain link fence with this mesh.
With the slats in it.
Well, it's not going to be the slats. It's going to be actually solid. So it comes in a row. It's a roll type stuff. Sometimes you see it on these ball diamonds and things, but this is more of a opaque, so it's not as.
Is that plastic weaving you put in it? Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's not the plastic weaving that go in the chain link. I know what you're talking about, but this is actually a mesh type roll material that would be applied over the chain link and then attached to it. It has grommets in it and things. You attach it to it. You sometimes see it at ball fields and things, but this is a little bit more opaque, so not have the see-through. Sometimes those ball field ones are a little bit not as dense, I guess. But so I would ask if we could use that type of material as opposed to doing like a wood.
In your opinion, does it meet the requirements of a solid fence?
Yes, it does, yeah. What I'm talking about, yes. And we wouldn't be able to do a berm simply because we don't have the space. A berm would take too much of a footprint, so we just don't have it. So it'd have to be a fence.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there Mr. Coffey, is there a fence all the way around the property currently?
Right now, and I might ask Mr. Curtis to come on up and he can do a better job of
Sure.
showing you where the current fence is. He did bring his color photo with him, so should be able to show you.
You got I-70, starts down here, all the way up, comes up to this storage unit here, and then it comes right straight up to right about this blue, comes across and turns back down, and there's a gate, a sliding gate right here. There's no fence from here to here. The fence starts right here at the building and goes straight west and tees back into here.
Okay, can you take it down to that end and repeat? what
Yeah.
you showed me? Your name is?
Gordon Curtis.
I know where it starts and stops.
Yeah. It stops right here, comes across here, down, then our gate here, and then it starts back over here.
Yeah, straight down, way down. You have any problem fencing this in up to here?
Well. You really don't want to shut that driveway off.
No, I didn't, I wasn't saying, I just said up to here. I knew your driveway is accessible.
Right.
You gotta have a driveway accessibility to it.
Right, but this here is all out front. I mean, it's always been open, but there's a gate right here and a fence that comes across to here.
Room for them
There's really
trucks.
no reason to shut this off because this here comes in. As this comes in, it goes back to this back building, and then plus they go into the truck stop next door through that driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't plan on shutting that driveway up in any way.
Yeah, it's blocked off like about here, almost.
trucks need space.
Isn't that right? The corner of that building.
Yep, starts right here at the corner of the building.
All right, are we clear on where the fence is, gentlemen?
And this one has to end too, but you don't have the.
It's 6 foot, not
Right.
8.
Are we clear on where the fence is?
I think,
Okay, you can step back, sir. That way, if we have any
Objection to
questions, we can address them from the podium. I said you can go ahead and step back. If we have questions, you can address them from the podium so the microphone picks you up. Thank you. All right, we're still in discussion. Gentlemen, any other discussion on this? Ms. Parker, have we had complaints on this? No? Okay, thank you. I wouldn't be at all opposed with their request on this, and I would say that take their existing fence, make it screened so that you can't see through it like we've been talking about. I think I understand what material you're talking about using on there. And it's been there since the 80s operating as this. Just gets them legal. Not looking at putting something in that wasn't there before. It's an area that's, the use around it's similar to it, it's my thought. So I'd be in favor of this. And keep their 6-foot fence, just make it, I guess opaque would be the right term as opposed to solid. We just want to provide screening, right?
I don't see a problem with the operation and stuff there at all. As I say, it's been for years, you know, the old blue and white truck stop and everything else that was there. My concern is with the fence. I personally think it ought to be a 8-foot fence, and it ought to go also encompass up off the exit of the ramp area and around to the east side too, up next to Little Point Road there. I think it ought to be an 8-foot fence because, you know, aesthetically, as far as the cosmetics of it, looking at it coming off the interstate, you know.
I don't know, but
Due to later progress coming on, we, you know,
would he have to put a whole new fence in, or can the extra 2 or 3 feet be attached to the fence that's there now?
You'd have to put a whole new fence in.
You do?
Well, I drive by it fairly often, and I think there's uglier things that I've seen on the interstate than that place there. I would be content. I'm getting prices on fencing right now, and 8-foot-high fencing that I could live with a 6-foot fence as long as it was.
With concertina wire.
Well, the way people borrow things today, maybe concertina wire would be necessary, but I could live with a 6-foot fence to be made as we put.
Well, personally, I don't think there's gonna be anybody carry anything over a 6-foot fence, let alone an 8-foot fence.
I think aesthetically, the appearance it's giving coming off there, one of the first exits into Morgan County. And to say for future sites and stuff coming in there too, we gotta look at it as far as, I'm looking at as the planning side of it too. Aesthetically as appearance-wise, going in the first exit there, future growth in that area, which we all know it's gonna go there.
Well, I guess I'd compromise. 8 foot along the interstate, 6 foot the rest of where the fence is.
You know, them people come off that
8 foot
interstate
long,
going 70
70,
miles,
60.
80 miles an hour.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
It's just aesthetically, as I say, right up there on the north and then the east side.
Well, if you had the 6-foot fence and you went with 2 strands of barbed wire, could you hook that
Yeah.
material to the top barbed wire?
you're gonna have to change all the poles in the
Put an
fence.
extension on it. I mean, you can buy them extensions, I think, so I don't know.
When I've driven by there, it seems to me like a fair amount of what he's got sitting out there, and we're in a discussion, we're not allowing you to speak at this point, so just to clarify that. A lot of what he's got sitting there is semi-trucks or trailers. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my recollection of it. And whether it's 6 foot or 8 foot, you're still gonna see it sticking out over the top there.
Well, they're big trucks.
Well, yeah.
They're big trucks.
That's kind of my point.
They're gonna
but-
get their tires
What he's
fixed
talking
and
about, what
everything.
you can see in, behind the fence is what he's saying.
Yeah, behind the fence, you're gonna, whether it's 6 foot or 8 foot, you're gonna see it. If it's a semi-truck or trailer sitting there, you're still gonna see it sticking out above the fence. Nobody's complained about it. It's been that way for years. That's my only point. I understand what you're saying, Fred. It's the gateway into the county, and, you know, we don't want another 135 coming into the county there. I get that. But that's just my thought.
You know, or what we have up there on 67 where we asked for the fence.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
it didn't do much
At
good.
the mobile home play across the street, yeah.
I don't think there's been any complaints about it. I don't hear people moaning about it, you know? They're not paying attention, they're paying attention to their driving coming in there, not looking at what kind of cars are tied up in there and stuff.
I mean, I could park a whole bunch of my son right now is cutting up all my old farm equipment, but, it didn't bother me, but I could have parked along the highway and everybody could have seen it. I'd be happy with a 6 foot
I'm not
fence.
against the operation being there at all. It's the thing. What I am concerned with is the aesthetic value of what we're looking at coming off that exit there. What future growth, people will have ideas on future growth there, looking at that coming off.
Well, how much difference, do you think the 2 foot would make on the aesthetics? I mean, that's my only question is, knowing how expensive fencing is, and,
Maybe you can grow ivy on it,
it probably will.
cover it up.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'm all for him employing the number of people he employs and the service that he provides, and I guess we're just talking about, the aesthetics. I agree with Fred, it would look nicer. I just don't know if an 8 foot fence would,
They're not gonna care about the fun.
yeah.
Tourists zipping by are gonna measure the fence.
It's like I say, I think we all agree on it, we're just,
I don't think it would be, the 8 foot would be needed all the way around it, but I do think it would be on the north and the east side.
could you agree that on the north and east side, then what he's got the rest of the way?
Beg your pardon?
If he did the north and the east side, you'd be all for it at an 8 foot fence?
Yeah. The rest of it would be 6 foot.
I could agree with that.
That's what we're, my opinion, should be. I think, as I say, aesthetically, it would look,
I could go with that.
I'm not saying it just facetiously try to get him to invest more money into the thing. I'm looking at what we're looking at 15, 20 years down the road and future planning, because we know that's gonna be building up out there. We're hoping it's gonna be building up out there.
No, I could go with that. 8 foot on the north and the east side, and 6 foot what we've got the rest of the way.
All right, other discussion?
Could you guys live with that as a compromise?
We have to.
So you want it 8 foot on the north?
And that east side, what he's saying, the aesthetics from the interstate.
Which would be the north side of it, the way
North,
it lays.
north side and the east side, where I was showing you out up there, coming around over there.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to block the front of my building off if I don't have to.
No, he just, on the north side where they tell you it's blue or green or
Yeah.
whatever color. They're not gonna block your garage front.
Even to a point of, you know, coming in off that 45-degree angle there that you're seeing on your photograph there at the edge of it. And you still have open view of your front of your building.
Just so I'm clear, so 3 would be all 8 foot.
Come all the way up to here. I don't have a problem with that. But I think that right there ought to be encompassed in, because you got this exit coming off of here, people coming off of here. Hopefully, if our future planning is,
Well, he's gonna put the collaring though back here. I'm sorry.
yeah,
This is parking lot here.
Yeah,
For
I
these
know.
workers.
but there's still a lot of equipment and stuff out there. That's what I propose.
Any other discussion, gentlemen?
I guess the question I'll ask the board here is basically, we approve it. The only difference is the fence. That's our only question.
That's the only thing I see, in my opinion.
If you made a motion, Mr. Roberts,
Beg your pardon?
how would you make a motion to approve this if you did make one with the fence?
Make a motion that it be approved for the facts, finding of the facts with the addition of adding the 8-foot fence to the north side and the 45-degree angle off to the east side.
I could live with that very easy.
All right. Once again, gentlemen, any more discussion?
I have no questions.
No, any more discussion? I don't want to cut you off.
I have nothing.
Okay, open for a motion.
I make a motion that we approve U-22-05, allow and establish automotive repair and service storage vehicles yard B3 district located at 9680 North Little Point Road. With all the finding of the facts that was presented with the following exceptions. We have an 8-foot fence along the north side of the 8-foot
Along 70.
yeah, an 8-foot, I don't know how you would classify that as a.
On the
Barrier fence?
on the
Barrier
bearing
fence?
east portion of the property.
Beg your pardon?
Bearing east of the portion of the property.
Yeah. That's, I'm just trying to describe the fence.
How about just simply a fence that blocks the view from the interstate and other highway of the property?
That sounds good. But on the north side of it, and then the 45-degree angle as shown in the map shown that we talked about here at the meeting. That's what my proposal is.
All right.
My motion.
Do you have a motion with a condition? Do I have a second to that motion?
Excuse me, let me add one to it.
You can second it?
With the finding of the 6-foot fence around the rest of the property be added to it.
Gordon seconded it. Yes.
Gordon second. All right, all in favor, please raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. That's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda this evening is public hearing SE-22-06A. Steve Boylan is seeking to amend the previously approved 2022 special exception to increase the number of disc golf tournaments allowed each year. The property is located at 7411 North Kivett Road in Gregg Township and is zoned for ag. For this application, I have 10 people, including the applicant, signed up in support, no one in opposition, and no one as an interested party. Mr. Boylan.
Hello, Board. Steve Boylan, 7411 North Kivett Road, Monrovia, Indiana is my address. And I am the one that's seeking to increase the number of tournaments. Number of tournaments was limited to one back in July 25th at this board meeting. And some of the reasons that we're looking at doing this, we can actually do some more community outreach. Right now, we do a tournament every year for one of the local do a fundraiser tournament for one of the Monrovia Christian Church, the food pantry. And in their food pantry, we've raised up over $3,500 in the last 3 years. That's including during COVID when we actually had to cancel. We had donations come in from the disc golfers through that. We are developing a relationship with the Gregg Township Fire Department, and we'd like to run a fundraiser for them. We talked about doing one on their property. We'd like to do one with on our property as well as a community outreach. In fact, the chief and the assistant chief are here tonight in support, so we appreciate them coming. To date, we've run 11 events since we bought the property back in 2019. We only had one course in. We first started running things. It was open to just disc golfers, so it wasn't open to the general public, but disc golfers that are members of the PDGA, the Pro Disc Golf Association, which they have over 240,000 total members and right around 120,000 active members at this point in time. We've only averaged about 65 people per event. Although we've only had 65 people per event, we've had some recognizable impact on the economy. Locally, we've had, we've called and coordinated things with the subway local station there in Monrovia. We've sent people down to Main Street. Freiburg's gets quite a bit of business from us. And there's different things in the area, of course, people buy gas and that kind of thing. We plan to offer disc golf locally to the high school in Monrovia and maybe some middle schools or in Eminence as a non-concussive sport. It's one of those growing things that like to do, and to do that, sometimes we may need to run a tournament, tournaments to be able to do some fundraisers that way, as well as running tournaments just to get people active and interested in it. If you run some bigger events, you can have people come in nationally, and that attracts a lot of local people. When I was here last, I was asked some questions about what we've done. And some of the things we've done since we had the last approval is we've coordinated with Gregg Township Fire Department. We've had surveyor mark the property line. We've obtained a septic permit and with state guidelines for the bathroom/storage building. We've obtained permits for the building and drainage. Obtained a permit for the building and consulted drainage as well, sorry. We obtained a silt fence and installed the construction project. We have a plan for parking with parking spot labels if we have to do labels if necessary. And we moved 2 targets from the boundary border of our north side property so that people would not be going close to anywhere near that property line. What else have we done? I've actually purchased the fencing wire for the property to my north and started coordinating with property owners that had complaints about people possibly being on their property. and started coordinating. I haven't received any response from them yet regarding the costs, but we've already purchased the fencing itself. We've also had the Morgan County invasive species people come out and show us how we can beautify our property by getting rid of some of the different species that are bad for us out there. So.
Thank you, gentlemen. Questions?
What were the fire departments that you mentioned earlier?
Gregg Township Fire Department. So I met with them, they came out. One of the conditions was that we would have to, for the camping aspect of it, we would have to meet with the fire department and make sure they can handle and service that area. We met with them, started building a relationship with them. I actually went to their township building and toured it. They gave me a full tour of their building, their volunteer building. I really appreciate them spending their time doing that. As it turns out, one of the assistant chief actually has played disc golf quite a bit in the past, so she understands the benefits and the values of disc golf on
That was Gregg Township you're talking about?
Gregg Township.
Gregg Township?
Gregg Township, yes.
What are the two other names you did earlier, you said, I thought? Just Gregg?
Just Gregg, that's all I've talked about. I originally called Monrovia Fire Department, and they referred me over to Gregg, so.
Gentlemen, other questions?
You have indicated that you have moved the course away from some of the property owners.
Absolutely. So there's no chance right now of a disc being errantly thrown in that people's backyard. There wasn't a chance of it anywhere because we had 100 feet of woods that would go, a disc would have to travel 100 feet through thicket woods to be able to get to that backyard. There was no chance of it before, but just in case, we went ahead and made those changes.
How many tournaments do you want, and do you expect to put these on holidays like 4th of July, Labor Day, things like this, or what is the, you say 65 people. I assume that it's going to grow. You would certainly hope it will.
Right.
But are these going to be regular weekends, or are these going to be holiday weekends? What do you anticipate?
They're mixed. So one of the events that we do is called the Western Indiana Frozen Fundraiser Series. We try to do the finale for that. And that's a fundraiser that is 30 tournaments deep inside of the January, February, March. You have 30 different tournaments all throughout the state, and we hold the finale there. And the reason why we hold the finale there is because we can have up to 144 people. If you look at the list that I gave you here, we had 111 and 125. That's the most amount of people we've ever had out there. Our disc golfers love to do fundraisers because they do love helping and supporting the community. That being said, we have held some on Memorial Day. We tried one on Labor Day. We've tried some on different days to find out what is going to stick, so to speak. Generally, they're smaller. And quite honestly, I kind of like them smaller because it gets a little bit more intimate. I can get to know the people better and be able to keep an eye on the property more. As it grows, it could be on a weekend. I don't anticipate it being on a Memorial weekend because of the race. I know it's still 40 miles away, but we don't want people to compete for beds, hotel beds. So we'd like to do it on other weekends. Eventually, we'd like to get up to maybe 8 to 10, honestly. But at 5, I think 5 is a measurable amount for you guys to be able to make decisions on in the future. And whether or not we have, we've had no police activity. We've had anything negative like that, no emergency vehicles at all. I've personally run 46 events in the last 10 years, not including this place, but other places as well. We've never had any kind of issue other than a medical issue at one of them. And that was a gentleman had a heart attack and unfortunately didn't make it. My family, my son and his daughter are paramedics, and we get some advice from them on what kind of equipment we need, plus be working with the Gregg Township, let them know what we're doing before we do any of our events, so they can be informed if we have any issues.
You do anything with the police?
Not yet. We like the police, they're nice people. So,
Since we don't want you back, not necessarily, we don't want you back another 6 months, what would be your ideal scenario as far as the number of tournaments that you think would be feasible, giving me a maximum number?
okay. So there are
Per year,
different
per
quality of
calendar year.
tournaments that are available. So you have what they call a super tour or a major. And a major is gonna
Excuse
bring.
me just a second. I think the question was, how many, not what kind of tournaments, just a number, is that what you were trying to get at?
Absolutely, yes.
How many tournaments? How many would you want to be able to entertain at your facility?
8 a year.
Okay.
I'm only asking for 5 because I think that's measurable to where you guys can make a decision on in the future, but 8 would be the perfect number.
So if we said 8, you could go up, I want a number you could go up to.
Yeah.
You know, I would hope that your business would go. I played this in a public park one time with a grandson. I'd like a realistic idea of where you want to be in, say, 5 years. And
Tired.
excuse me. So, in 5 years, you would still expect 8 tournaments?
Yes, and I would be devoting more time into those 8 to make them a higher quality and better events.
Now, these are going to be, as a tournament goes, is this going to be a 1-day, 2-day, 3-day tournament?
Right now, they're all gonna be 1 or 2 days. A tournament can be up to 4 days. Right now, we have no plans on going to 4 days, except for maybe 5 years in the future after. I figured you guys would only allow 5, and then I would have to come back, and then a couple of years from now, say, hey, I'd like to go to a 3-day or a 4-day event.
Basically, at 8 tournaments, at 4 days, that's 32 days a year, you'd have a tournament, basically 1 month.
That's impossible for me to do well. I'd have to have 40 people on staff to be able to put on, I'm just letting you know, 8 events at 4 days each, it'd be impossible to do correctly. I would be cutting my nose off, okay? I can do 8 events really well, having 1 event that's more than 2 days, having 3 events at 2 days, and then having everything else a single days. It's too much energy, it's too much work to do.
So what we would basically put in this is that you had 8 tournaments to not exceed arbitrarily 3 days of tournament.
Okay.
That would be, probably make you happy?
That would make me happy.
So the number of tournaments could be up to 8, with no tournament lasting longer than 3 days.
Yes.
Okay, that answered my question. Thank you.
Gentlemen, any other questions from the board?
And, back in July, when you came forth here, we put a stipulation about coming back in October of next year.
Yes.
With a report on
Yes.
what we have been come up with. Are you still willing to live with that if we increase quantity? coming
Yes,
back in here?
More than happy to come back.
Determination of how acceptable it is within the community.
Yes. Disc golf, I understand, is not something that is very common to people, and it's a growing sport. And I understand that there are going to be some apprehension and some questions about it, and most certainly I'd love to come back here and talk to you about it.
Next thing, you are under the understanding that all we're discussing here is the number of tournaments we're allowing, nothing else, and that was discussed in July or approved in July is going to be affected by this in any way. It's still all the
Yes.
same stipulations within.
Yes, you're just looking at the number of events. That's the only thing I'm requesting. But because of all your questions that you had before, I wanted to bring up all the things that we have been doing, because I want to show you that we're working at things, and we're taking everything here seriously.
Any other questions from the board?
You proposed 5 tournaments in here.
Yes, my wife made me
And then
promise
you've
only to
also
do
talked
5.
8. Would you be satisfied for this first year till we have the October meeting?
Yes.
With the in between 6?
Yes. Yes, that would be very satisfying.
Any other questions from the board?
I have none.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I've got 9 other people signed up to speak on behalf of this. And like we did with the application earlier this evening, we're going to limit you to 2 minutes. And we are only speaking to why there should be a special exception to increase the number of disc golf tournaments allowed each year. We're not talking about disc golf, the health of it, how much we enjoy it. We're just talking about why you would support this application for more tournaments. So keeping that in mind, Jennifer Boylan. Thank you. Carol Porter.
I'm Carol Porter. I live at 7210 North Kivett Road. I'm across the road from the Boylans. At the previous hearing on July 25th, I spoke as an interested neighbor. Today, I am speaking in support of the Boylans' proposed amendment to increase the number of tournaments each year. In August, my husband and I visited Steve and Jennifer Boylan. They are fine people who want to contribute something purposeful and positive to our community. We toured the disc golf course. We were impressed with the very hard work they had done to clear rough areas and transform them into a safe and beautiful disc golf course. Disc golf is a wholesome sport that encourages those who participate to develop skills and to build self-esteem. I grew up with Frisbees. It's basically a Frisbee course in the woods. And as their neighbor, we have not been disturbed in the slightest. In fact, I can only see good for our county to have their tournaments on their property. I heartily support their proposed amendment to increase the number of tournaments allowed each year.
Thank you.
6 or 8?
Sure.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, hold on just a second, Ms. Porter, if you would. Any questions for Ms. Porter?
No.
And you were, I remember you here, you were concerned about what was going to happen and all that.
Sure.
Okay, all right, very good. Thank you. Trevor Eads. Thank you. Trenton Cadwell. Thank you. Jeff Nugent. Thank you. Ted Britton. Thank you. Emmanuel Bernard. Thank you. Charles Heflin.
Charles Heflin. I live at 4.5 North Main Street in Brooklyn. I am the Assistant Fire Chief with the Gregg Township Fire Department. Just a clarification, the other individual with me here is our EMS Director, not our Fire Chief, but my Fire Chief is in a class now, so he knows I'm here. Anyways, I am here to support this. I have personally toured the facility, toured the course. Mr. Boylan came to me and asked, can I, as a fire department, provide fire protection and EMS protection to his property? We've proven that we can do that. He's not had any calls, but we timed what it would take to get from our station to his property. It's 2.5 minutes. There's nothing on his property we don't have access to. We have a brush truck that can go off-road, and we also have a UTV, a side-by-side, specifically for events or conditions like what he has at his facility. I really didn't know a lot about disc golf, but I think that this is an excellent opportunity to bring individuals to our community. I would hope that as he grows, things start growing around him. I've seen numbers anywhere from small communities that have brought in $11,000 for annually for tournaments, all the way up to Peoria, Illinois, who did $1 million annually by hosting tournaments. So this brings revenue to the community. There's no hotels in the Wilbur area, so they'd obviously probably go to that 39 corridor, Monrovia. So all those businesses in that area would benefit from the increased traffic to the area. And he has talked about doing a partnership with us, with the fire department. Somebody up here asked about whether it was going to do something with the police department. We actually brought that up. We met with the police department, with the sheriff's department, my correction. They are wanting to purchase forcible entry tools for if they have a school shooting, barricade situation. Their individual squad cars do not carry what we call a Halligan bar, which is a forcible entry tool. We've already talked about and gotten quotes from vendors that if we could do a partnership, sorry, I'll hurry. Yep.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
Angela Van Meter, is that right? Van Matter? It's Meter. Meter, okay. Angela, you signed your name twice. I can't read either one of them.
He actually signed it the second time, I'm not gonna lie.
All right.
Because we realized we signed the wrong form. Angela Van Meter, 4.5 North Main Street in Brooklyn. Again, I'm with Gregg Township Fire Department. I also play disc golf as well. Steve actually called wanting us to come out. I wasn't aware of his course, honestly. Prior to that, we've toured it. The reasons I would support the additional tournaments is, being a disc golf player, I've seen the money that can be raised. Not only the money that we can raise, I think for me, it's seeing more of the ways that you get youth involved, and that is what we will consider, let's just say, a doubles tournament. We're an adult partners with a kid. The kid doesn't have to be able to throw real far because we take whatever the furthest throw is. So you get to bring kids into this and teach them to do something other than be on their phones. So for me, being a part of tournaments like that, really the adults are still competing. The kids don't know, but they're still involved, they're still learning, and they're doing something that isn't sitting in front of an electronic. So, and especially, the fire department, we like to bring the kids out. So that's kind of a thought of a tournament that I want to do where, a child gets partnered with an adult. And then they get that interaction. So for me, like I said, it's more of a, we get to bring the kids and the youth into this too. Matter of fact, you all could even come at that. It doesn't matter what age you are with disc golf. There's a way to make it work for everybody. I actually started playing disc golf during a recovery from a near-death experience. So my doctor suggested it as a recovery sport, and it grew to be a big part of my life. So.
Thank you. Gentlemen, questions? No. Thank you very much. All right. I believe I called on everyone. Did I miss anyone? Nope. Okay. At this point, we'll end our public hearing. We'll go into the public meeting portion of our meeting. We're here at this point to hear a special exception request. This, again, ties back into one that we had in July. And the applicant's asking to have more than one tournament. Do you gentlemen need me to read the information on the special exception use that's in here?
I don't think we
What
need
the
to.
applicant has written, since we already approved it, we're just modifying it?
That's all we're doing is just modifying the amount of tournaments.
Thank you very much, then. I'll pass on that. I will read staff's recommendation. They wrote, in July, the petitioner was provided with the staff report, which clearly stated the list of recommendations, including the limitation of 1 tournament per year. But during the petitioner's initial presentation of his case, nor his rebuttal, did he raise any objections to the 1 tournament limitation approved in July. This issue should have been discussed with the board at that time, especially given the number of tournaments and outings that had already been held since 2020 and those that were already scheduled for 2022. Given the low volume of league or daily play, one can only assume that the course is more sustainable when more tournaments are offered, and this is driving the request to allow more tournaments. It should be pointed out that as of this writing, there have been no additional inquiries from the public following the renotice of this hearing, but there may still be remonstrators at the meeting who wish to be heard. If the board decides to amend the prior approval to increase the number of tournaments allowed each year to 5, this does not change or negate any of the other conditions or requirements associated with the July 25th, 2022 approval. And I don't have any technical reports for this one, so we'll open for discussion. Gentlemen?
I would, it seems like we keep underestimating what we need, and he said 5, Fred said 6, I said 8. I don't know what the right number is going to be, but I can see an economic benefit when somebody comes up and says, hey, I recall our conversation the last time. This time it was very positive, which I felt good about. We have no remonstrators, basically. Pulling a number out of the air is, I think, our only choice, and I'd rather say 8. If he only wants 6, that's fine and dandy. We're not saying he has to have that number. We just give him an opportunity. The economic advantages of a multi-day tournament sound pretty good to me as far as what would happen to that area. I'm all for it. When the motion's made, we'll pick a number.
Thank you, gentlemen. Other discussion?
I don't see anything wrong with increasing the amount of tournaments on the thing. From, on the sidebar of it is what he has made statements of what they've done, what they're trying to accomplish, and what they have accomplished. I see trending to the positive end of it. I'm still have some concern about the adaption with the neighbors and stuff like that onto the thing. That's why I thought we would come to a compromise between the amount of tournaments, what he originally wanted, and what, you know, the 5 tournaments and versus the 8 tournaments that Bill spoke about, and come to a 6, and with the open end of it, that if everything works out right, in October of next year, be able to increase it. And I'm in hopes we will be able to, because I do think it's going to be it will be an asset, but I still have to question the fact of you know, what other people around is going to be acceptable in that area. We still have contention of neighbors and stuff and to deal with. That's where I think.
Any other discussion?
I guess if you put it in, I'll go back to the number 6, that it would be written down as 6 tournaments not to exceed 3 days a tournament. Does that sound logical?
That would be all right.
Yeah, this was interesting because I don't know why the number one for the tournaments came up last time. We didn't really delve into that. I don't think the applicant fully grasped what the business was going to entail, although he had been operating it there and prior to bringing it in to us. Big difference for me is last time we had 8 or 10, 15 neighbors all concerned about what was going to happen there. And tonight we got one of those people back here supporting him, which we love to see that. I mean, what?
That's a good aspect.
Yeah.
That's why I say
Yeah.
we've seen things change.
Yeah, and
Even
as far as I know,
just a
we
few
haven't had,
months.
we haven't had any complaints, have we? No complaints.
We've seen some changes within just 3 months here that, and it's on the positive change.
He's brought up the issues that we wanted him to
5
have
or 6
addressed
or 8.
before.
Tournaments, not. Yeah, we changed from one, what we approved back then, up to what we going.
He brought up issues that we wanted him to address before. It sounds like he's done that. I would certainly support this, and whether it's 5, 8, 6.
As I say, it was at the questions that he had brought, the answers he had brought up and the statements he had brought up as a sidebar to what our project is here tonight. And I think it's a positive, what is being done, what has been done. And it's a positive that we didn't have any remonstrators here tonight.
Any other discussion? Open for a motion.
I would move that we, on public hearing SCE-22-06A, that we allow them to have up to 6 disc golf tournaments each year to not exceed each tournament more than 3 days.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve with the condition. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Say aye. Aye. It's approved. Thank you very much. I'm sorry? All opposed, raise your hand. Say aye. Okay. All right. Well, it's approved 4-1. All right, folks, thank you very much. We're still having a meeting, so you're welcome to stay. If you do, please do so quietly. Otherwise, thank you. Mr. Peden, do we have a staff attorney report tonight? Nothing to report. Ms. Parker, any news from the plan director this evening? No? We do have a meeting on November 28th, 2022, open for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Yep. All in favor, please raise your right hand, say aye. Aye. Thank you. Take your pick.
Paper here.
What?
I help clean up.
Oh, you're part of the janitors?
Feel bad.